This time on Watchers of Tomorrow, the Ketwolski Insurrection!
Hello everyone, welcome to Watchers of Tomorrow, the sci-fi review and critique show that's trying to put the humanities back into science fiction. I am Gep, and I'm joined as always by my friend and co-host Dr. Isix.
Hi!
And this week we are doing our interlude in between seasons movie episode, and we have a special guest who you may or may not know, but you should, and you should go check out his stuff. We are joined this week by Ketwolski.
Hello, hi, thank you for having me on the podcast. I'm very excited to sit down with you guys and have some in-depth discussions today. I am actually very pumped about it. I don't do too many podcasts, and when I do decide to do them, I usually only select people that I think that I'll actually like having a very long conversation with. So that's why I'm here, and I'm excited to get into it.
Well, hopefully that's us. You don't always podcast, but when you do,
You want to make sure it's awesome.
That's right, exactly. It's got to be worth the time, you know, because it is a lot of work. You guys do a lot of work for it, and it's a lot of stuff to kind of prepare for and kind of have a good discussion with. You know, you don't want to sign up for a 2 or 3 hour discussion, you know, or whatever it's going to be with some people that you're like, I kind of don't like this guy. You know, he's a bit of a jerk. So, yeah, no, I'm excited for our discussion today, and we picked a great topic as well. So I'm super pumped to get into it.
In fact, I'd say that this is kind of a topic that's kind of in between what both of us kind of focus on right now, because you're working on a lot of current Trek, lower decks and Discovery and things like that right now.
Mm-hmm.
While we've been covering a lot of older Trek, the original series and things like that. This is kind of right between.
It is. I definitely I used to cover a lot of the older stuff when I first started the channel, but it just kind of morphed into a more current events type thing. It's just kind of the nature of the game a little bit, but yeah, this is definitely kind of a middle of the road thing there, where it's like I like to talk about these things, but that's not really what people go to my channel for. So again, this is a great opportunity for me to kind of gush a little bit and also kind of critique some of the more traditional Star Trek stuff that I watch in my own time and have nobody to talk to about in my personal life. So this is it. This is my therapy. So you guys, hope you guys aren't charging me by the hour. So because I can't pay.
In fact, you should be charging us.
Yeah, well, the bill's in the mail, so just look out for it.
So for anybody who has been following what we've been doing and might be a little bit confused, we've been going through original series in order. We just got to the end, and now we are skipping several years ahead because we are covering Star Trek The Next Generation's Insurrection, which is the third movie in the not original series, in the Next Generation movie lineup. We decided to skip to another Star Trek movie, and sometimes we try to avoid those because I did the math, and at our current pace, it would take us almost 5 years of straight podcasting to get to this movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of franchise in between TOS ending
Yes.
and this movie. So yeah, I think you're making the right call, really. So.
So Star Trek Insurrection was, as I said, the third movie in the Star Trek Next Generation movie catalog. It was one that they explicitly stated they wanted to use to break the even-odd Trek movie curse, which is that every odd-numbered Trek movie is terrible.
Right. Which all they did in this case was enforce it and actually give it new life, actually. Unfortunately,
Whoops.
I think this one reinvigorated that curse and just validated that it does exist.
Well, they jinxed the next one, too. So I think they just reset something. Yeah.
Well, Nemesis was that came out after Galaxy Quest, right?
Yeah, I guess if you're counting Galaxy Quest as the next even-numbered Star Trek
Are we including
movie.
parody films? Okay, I like it. No, this is the new. This is part of the metaverse of Star Trek. Yeah, no, I'm excited. Okay.
Well, either enforces, or I have my own theory, which I'll get into when we hit the discussion portion, because I think I've cracked this whole thing wide open after reviewing.
Oh man,
The Star Trek code.
Right. Let's just skip right to it. You know.
So Star Trek Insurrection was written by Michael Filler and was directed by Jonathan Frakes, who also appears in the cast. Now, Isix wanted to have a chance to quickly run through the Star Trek Next Generation cast, since we have not yet introduced any of them, even though I'm sure everyone who's listening to this is at least passingly familiar with Next Generation. Otherwise, go watch some, because you will just be deathly confused by this entire enterprise.
That's almost a pun there.
Yes, I like that. That was really good. Yeah.
So playing, Captain Picard is Patrick Stewart, best known as Gurney Halleck from Dune. There is also Jonathan Frakes, who plays Xanatos from Gargoyles. So he's playing Commander Riker. There's Brent Spiner, who played Dr. Eric Sung from Star Trek Enterprise. He's playing Commander Data. There's LeVar Burton, who played himself on Reading Rainbow. He plays Geordi LaForge. Michael Dorn, who plays Worf in this movie, is also known for playing I Am Weasel on Cow and Chicken. Gates McFadden, who is playing Beverly Crusher, was in the Muppets Take Manhattan as Dr. Price's secretary. Very important role there. And of course, there is Marina Sirtis, who plays Troy, who was Dr. Markov in Stargate SG-1. Now, I know all our audience knows every single one of these roles very well, so I don't have to go into more details on that.
No, I love the shout outs to their previous films and credits. I like how LeVar is just LeVar from Reading Rainbow. He's been in other things, I know. But that's good. No, I love that. That's great.
He has. I was reading a thing, just he was such a good actor that he wasn't thinking about acting, then he auditioned for something, landed a starring role, and has just been doing it ever since he was like a teenager.
Wait, he was in the Roots. He was Roots.
Mm-hmm, Roots.
Yeah, he was Kunta Kinte in that. Yeah, very good, popular movie. Absolutely, yeah, that definitely launched his career. And then jumping into this, and after they shaved off that crazy mustache they had during pre-production that their Forge originally had for TNG, he was able to, and the mullet. I think there was a bit of a mullet there too.
Oh, no.
So yeah, it was not a good look. Definitely a good idea. Somebody said, "Hey, Gene, we should probably maybe nix the stash," and they did the right thing there. So yeah, he definitely owned the role. So yeah, I love it.
I have to look up some pictures now.
So just because there are too many people in this freaking movie, I'm going to very quickly, with no additional credits, run through the guest stars we have. F. Murray Abraham is playing Adar Ruafo. I didn't realize until I was reading the script that every name in this thing has at least one apostrophe in it. Which is so weird. Donna Murphy is playing Anij. I think that's the best way to pronounce it. I couldn't hear it very well when they said it in the movie.
It's hard to pronounce, yeah.
Yeah, she's playing. Yeah, it's just is it Anij? Anij? Yeah, I'm not quite sure. Yeah,
Anij.
Annie J.
Anthony Zebri is playing Admiral Matthew Dougherty, and Greg Lee Henry is playing Galatane.
Yeah, there's some other people, but they're not super important.
Yeah, these are most of the major speaking roles.
What's fun is there's actually, because this movie came out, back in '98. There's actually a couple of like background actors that I noticed, especially like on the bridge crew of the Sona, who are wearing a lot of their different makeup and kind of costumes and stuff, that are more famous science fiction stars that have kind of later come out as time went on. So it is kind of interesting to see how certain people kind of maybe got quote unquote started in this realm of science fiction just from these movies. And this is obviously not exclusive to Insurrection, but it is interesting to kind of pick some of those names out that you kind of see like, oh, wow, back in '98, you were Sona Officer Number 5, but now you're one of the main characters from Battlestar Galactica or whatever it is. So it's quite interesting for sure.
Yeah, it's always fun. I was going back through once and watching Star Trek First Contact, and then this guy pops up and has the dumbest speaking line in the entire movie, and it's his only thing. And it's like, oh my God, you were in Arrow. I recognize you.
Wait. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's you were in Arrow. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of different kind of like little people that kind of like make different appearances and stuff like that, which I think is great. I think it's kind of fun. Like I think even what was it in First Contact? I think it was Adam Scott had the speaking role on board the Deviant, where he was like, it's the Enterprise, but he was just a no-name actor at the time. Like nobody was like watching the theater, and they saw him pop up and they're like, oh my God, that's Ben Wyatt from Parks and Recreation. Like nobody knows, who Adam Scott was, now people see that. They're like, oh my gosh. But right, he was just, he's probably just jazzed to be on the Defiant set, he's probably just excited, which I would be too.
We could probably go on with this one all day. So let's just go into this actual story that we're talking about, and then that'll give us something else to talk about all day.
All right. So where do we begin, Gepwin?
All right, our story opens in an idyllic village in some weird late Renaissance-y level of technology. an undefined technological alien era, but not super modern technology stuff. It's just like this fun, idyllic little agricultural town.
Blacksmith and irrigation and lots of digging.
It's an interesting thing there, right? Like, obviously later on we find out that one of the guys is like, we were unable to repair his positronic matrix because of a phase variance or whatever it was. And it's like, well, with what? Like with the wheat? Like what were you using? Like, so is there like a shed back there that you've got like all the, when it becomes like, oh yeah, we got to build that bridge and make it perfectly symmetrical and smooth. They've got like a shed full of equipment that they just go and use, you know? It's like, what were they going to repair his positronic matrix with?
We poked him with a stick and it didn't do anything.
Yeah, it was just so we just let him kind of just fly off, really. We just kind of hung out, you know. We fed the crew, you know. We gave him some, you know, crab legs or whatever the hell it was on the table that I saw, which was a weird buffet of food.
Maybe next time, you know, we could try a hammer on the plow and see if that works on him instead.
Right. We hooked him up to our windmill and it didn't seem to fix anything. Oh well, you know, because that's probably not how that fucking works. But you know, so yeah. Sorry. Anyways, yeah, continue with the Baku as they are.
We continue with our tour of the village, introduced to the annoying child of the movie, who's arguably the world's worst hide-and-seek player as he pops out of a haystack and is chased around by friends. Then our perspective shifts, and we're not just passively observing, but we're actually seeing a Federation observation post with some kind of stretchy-faced aliens that we don't know yet. And they're just observing this village for no readily apparent reason, with cloaked suits walking along with the inhabitants, which honestly seems a little risky. You're gonna bump into someone.
It's not even that. There's a moment where, like, during that sequence from the duck blind, you can see some of the suited people down there, and they're like walking across like a loose gravel path. You know, it's not soundproof boots. You know, they're gonna hear like the crunch of the gravel and be like, "What?
There's something going on with the ground over there. What's going on?"
It's the sandworms. You know, like what are they?
Oh.
Yeah, it's. I remember watching this movie when it first came out. Actually, I was able to see it in theaters, you know, and I even as a younger kid at the time, I remember seeing the stretchy faced people and just immediately just being like terrified of them. And then in hindsight, it's like, yeah, that's I wonder who the villain is. Oh, it's probably the guys that look like monsters. Oh yeah, okay, dressed in cloaks. Okay, got it.
They don't want to be ambiguous in these movies.
They don't. No subtlety. Nope. Yeah.
Things don't stay super idealistic for long because as soon as we see the observation post, phasers start going off, there's gunfire, there's reports that the android's gone haywire, and Commander Data, spouting some sort of weird error message, starts running through the village, incapacitating several of the observers before removing his suit, taking a phaser off of one of the other officers, and firing at the observation post, which reveals all of the inhabitants to the planet.
I do that sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, you know what I will say, though, about that scene is the effect of like Data's head kind of just hanging out, like, and he's kind of like walking around, and all of the different cloaked suits. The effect was actually pretty good. I thought it held up. I thought it looked nice.
Yeah.
I kept looking back. It's like this was made in the late 90s. The effects hold up. A lot of the cinematography holds up. Like you could see this movie today with like little tweaks, but everything like it held up surprisingly well for a late 90s movie.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, the whole opening sequence was actually much better than I remembered it being from the last time I watched it. And yeah, those effects, like even when the duck blind is kind of decloaking or whatever for when he shoots it, you know, it looks great, you know, in that position there, and how they all kind of walk up to it. What a great shot. You know, they're all like looking through the window there. It's very interesting.
It's like, hey, we're not visible. Hello, alien people here.
Hello.
Sorry about
this is awkward.
Don't
maybe
mind the special effects around here.
We shouldn't have put this duck blind right inside the village. Listen, there's a lot of issues with it. Just don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it.
Cut to Picard in bright white dress uniform with Dr. Crusher and Counselor Troy helping him prepare to meet some representatives of a new Federation member planet. We get some quick grounding where we learn that this movie is set during the Dominion War, which was set up in Deep Space Nine. The Federation has suffered heavy casualties from both this conflict, their war with the Borg, and their recent skirmishes with the Cardassians, so they're in kind of a position, and the Enterprise has been left to take care of mundane, everyday diplomatic stuff, like they have been doing for literally the entirety of Next Generation, but now they are complaining about it, I guess. Worf is here, because now we need to explain why Worf is here, because he's on DS9.
But the thing is they don't even They don't even address it, do they? They just kind of like, he's just there. They weren't even at a starbase. He's just on the ship. How did he even get on there? What is?
Well, it's great. I just love this because they're admitting that it really doesn't matter. Like, Worf, good to see you. Yes, I was on my. Yeah, fine.
Yeah, it's not important. Let's go on.
Yeah, and I guess that's true. They do kind of like make a bit of a joke about it because it's like what are they gonna do, a TNG movie without Worf?
Yeah, Worf's here because Worf needs to be here.
Right, because it's in the script.
The whole crew.
Yeah.
The whole cast.
Because he's contractually obliged to appear. Yeah. Right, exactly. He has a very important role in the movie because he has, to shoot the giant bazooka. So, he's got to be there. Who else is going to
shoot the bazooka and have Klingon puberty and...
Yes, a gorge. Yes, a gorge. Yeah. It's, who else was going to do that? So,
yeah,
it was necessary.
Picard does his diplomat thing, as well as Picard always does his diplomat thing, but he's interrupted by a message from Admiral Dougherty requesting Data's schematics because he's stopped responding to authority, basically, and he's holding people hostage on the planet. Picard offers to bring the Enterprise to assist, but Dougherty doesn't think it's a good idea because the entire area of space that they're in is full of anomalies that they don't quite understand, and they need to modify their ships to work in it, and they call it the Briar Patch so that we can refer to it easily.
Dougherty's like, you can't come in here, because it's like super dangerous and your ship's not calibrated for it. And then in like the next scene, they're like, yeah, we're just going to fly right into this big cloud, They didn't even...
It'll be fine.
Yeah, we got the shields, so what's the BFD?
Well, we're the Enterprise.
Yeah. They do kind of mention it's like, it works, it just doesn't work particularly well.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
They can get their ship in there, but it doesn't go full speed or anything. It'll break.
It doesn't go... Yeah. We're still... you're still able to use the manual steering column, but some of the other functionalities, not so much.
Seat warmers, they don't work at all.
Yeah, they're broken. The AC is also not so good, so we're going to get some fans up here. Gotta air out the engine room.
So Picard, as we've said, doesn't really take these orders very well and decides that it'd be best for the Enterprise to drop by and pick up Data anyway, because it's Data, and otherwise we don't have a movie. Meanwhile, Admiral Dougherty meets with Adara Ruafo, who's the leader of the Sona, who are the stretchy-faced guys we saw before. Also, during this, we see the Sona getting their stretched-faced stretched more, which is a weird sentence I wrote for some reason.
Yes, very good.
In a cosmetic surgery lab that they have.
You really... stretch that sentence. Boom.
Yes.
So, we know that these people are bad because they have cosmetic surgery with hot alien women.
Listen, we're going to get into that during the discussion piece because
Yeah.
that's my bone to pick with this movie.
Ruafo is upset with the Federation because the stuff they're doing to protect the only 600 people on this planet is putting all of their plans at risk, the plans they have that we're foreshadowing. Also, his ship is now under attack because Data showed up from somewhere.
It's like, hi, Data. Are we in danger here? The ship seems pretty weak and small. What gives?
Yeah, there's not a lot of consistency with the Sona ships, because Data wrecks it with that little shuttlecraft, but then later the same ship in another one just tries to basically just wrecks the Enterprise, So it's are they strong ships or are they not good ships? What are we doing here, folks? They don't know.
They only sent one out to attack, the good one out to attack the Enterprise. All the other ones aren't built very well. Non-standardized technology.
Just a standard Sona approach there, just cutting corners in the engineering. Yep, typical.
So as the Enterprise approaches the planet in this Briar Patch thing, Troy and Riker read up on the Sona, who have conquered primitive races, used them as cheap labor, manufactured Ketracel White, which is the Dominion-based narcotic that they use to control their troops, have illegal subspace weapons, and basically aren't the kind of people that the Federation should be involved with at all.
In fact, they sound just horrible. It's kind of okay, and they converted these primitive planets to have a worker class, not slavery. You're really kind of stretching it here, guys, trying to make them seem...
Yeah, they were in there. They were churching up the language for the official Starfleet Encyclopedia, Wikipedia entry for the Sona that they Googled, or space Googled, And this is, I'm bringing up that scene later on in my upsetness about the Sona. It's this crazy thing. They're talking about all these terrible things, and then they're like, you haven't done that in a while. What you're doing to my neck. And it's wait, what's the tone in this scene? What are we doing? Is it sex?
Troy and
or
Riker
is it
start just flirting with each other. Oh my god, war atrocities. Ooh, hi.
Ooh, yeah, what you're doing to my neck. Yeah.
You can tell that Frakes directed this.
Yeah, you mean how he gets to hang out with Marina Sirtis in a bathtub? Yeah, right.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's fine. I skipped that later because it's not really that important. So
No, you watched it thoroughly, frame by frame.
So they aren't the only ones who are behaving weird because they start flirting, but also Worf sleeps in and is late for his duty shift, and Picard can hear a misalignment in the sensors, which he apparently used to be very, very good at when he was younger.
So everyone's just kind of having a weird time. That's interesting.
Yeah, everyone's having a weird day.
Yeah, which is interesting because the implication there isn't really clear. It's obviously now in hindsight after obviously they're trying to set up the effects that the planet's rings have on people. But they're not super close to the planet, and they're just entering the briar patch. And it's like, okay, so is it the whole area, or is it just the rings? Like, because the whole
they're not very clear on some of this.
Right, they're not. And then it's anyways, all right. Yeah, I'll get into my gripes about the rings.
They get there, and Dougherty is annoyed the Enterprise is there because he didn't want them to come deal with Data. But, if they're here, they may as well. But if they fail, they're going to have to destroy him because he's acting too erratic and messing with their stuff. So Worf modifies a tricorder to shut Data down, but only at extremely close range. And he and Picard board a shuttlecraft to go find Data. They give chase briefly. Picard decides that since attacking him isn't really working, they should try singing, because I guess Data was rehearsing HMS Pinafore before he left. And we get what I objectively know this is a really, really bad scene, but I love it, where they all just start singing Gilbert and Sullivan while they're flying around the ships and attacking each other. And it's kind of great, even though it's objectively very stupid.
I would propose a different thought. It is a ridiculous concept that Picard was like, we should probably do a little karaoke. Karaoke's not going to maybe fix the problem, but it works. And the thing is the scene is effective and it's iconic. Mm-hmm. And that I think is yes, it is, like you said, objectively kind of stupid, from a storytelling script standpoint. But from a visual perspective and us on this little adventure, it worked very effectively. And it's something that people, everybody knows that scene. Everybody knows the HMS Pinafore scene.
Goofy as hell, but kind of fun.
Right.
I'll get into it more later, but I think the thing that really, really saved this movie, despite how many problems it has and how kind of stupid a lot of it is this cast is still amazing, and they still have the best chemistry that I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, we got some crap material, but we're gonna have some fun with it and just kind of make it work. All right, let's go.
I didn't put them in because they're not story relevant, but every scene has at least one kind of stupid, not very well written joke between two or more of the crew, and they pull it off.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I agree with you 100% there. I mean, their chemistry it's palpable on screen. I mean, you can even reference that to the Star Trek Picard show where, when you had, Sir Patrick and Frakes and Sirtis in the same scene, there was a different energy when he was with the other actors. Not to say anything negative. It's just, they just know each other so well. They're playing off each other so well that it's palpable.
These are people who already had chemistry to start. As bad as the first season of Next Generation was, which we are going to get to later, that season wasn't great, but they still had chemistry. They started with chemistry, and this is after they've been working together for 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Well practiced.
Yeah, well practiced, and they know each other. And that's, I think you're right to say, even the quote unquote poor TNG films are still salvageable. Every of them, Nemesis and Insurrection are kind of the two ones that get crapped on the most. But even with the two of them, there's still so many great moments and elements and sequences between the actors because of who they are and their interactions. And right to say that is the saving grace of any script. And it's great. Imagine if they spent, a couple more months maybe cooking this one. It could have probably been potentially even better than First Contact.
We have a schedule to keep.
Yeah.
So Picard and Worf managed to use the Gilbert and Sullivan gambit to deactivate Data, and then almost immediately, it seems, Picard and the crew beam down to the Baku to rescue their people from the village, who don't actually seem to be in any particular danger and are just having a nice time.
Just hanging out. You've been great hostages here. I hope we can do this again sometime. Feel free to take some leftovers with me.
We also see all of the kids playing super multi-dimensional hacky sack. I'd forgotten hacky sack was a thing for a minute.
Yes.
So like it's like, oh yeah, the 90s.
Right. Oh, right. Hacky sack, and it's futuristic hacky sack. I will say this though, is the sequence where they focus in on them is one thing, but actually when they do the wide shot, when they cut to the wide shot of all the, quote unquote hostages, they're still back there. Those kid actors are still pretending to hit things that aren't there, which is great. I think that was a great attention to detail, because they could have just not had them back there, but they decided to keep that in. And I thought that was a nice little effort there to kind of, create a sense of continuity between the sequences. So it was smart.
Troy watches the kids play super hacky sack and comments on how everyone here has great mental discipline, which is weird, I guess. Also here we meet Galatane, the Sona second in command, and Anij, who's the sort of default Baku leader, or at least one of them, because she's the one who's always talking to people.
Well, you have Anij, and then you have Disappointed Dad, is what you have.
Yeah, Disappointed Dad.
Is it Artem, right? Or am I thinking somebody else?
No, Artem's the kid.
Oh, okay.
Disappointed Dad is named Sojef.
Sojef, okay.
Which is just like some sort of 90s sitcom. He's so Jeff.
He's so Jeff. And he's always yelling at his son, He's always telling people to get inside,
Yep.
He's always just upset. He's just so, get inside. It's okay. We don't care about such things. God, could you take it easy?
Yeah.
Loosen up the vest. He's wearing that ridiculous smock. Ugh, God. I don't like that character. I don't know if you guys caught that.
So here we learn that the Baku already know what an android is and how it works, and that they actually have a really advanced level of technology to just choose not to use it.
I wonder if we've run into this weird agrarian sort of cultism on Star Trek before or after this.
Nope, definitely not. Nothing we've ever done before, because when they left the show and started writing the movies, they just forgot all of the episodes.
Yep. So this creates a handy-dandy loophole for the Federation, because as Picard later explains to Dougherty, they already have warp technology on this planet, so their culture's not going to be overly harmed by learning that they were being secretly watched by advanced aliens.
That's convenient, but okay, there's still some more questions here.
So Dougherty just orders Picard to leave while he tidies up some loose ends. Nothing honest happening here, go away. Riker and Troy flirt more and kiss with comedic results, because that was fun and necessary.
And also nonsense, because she's like, I've never kissed you with a beard before. And then
continuity errors.
I watched the show. That's okay though. It doesn't matter.
Well, she's being flirty. They don't have to be taken literally when you're flirting.
That's true. It is. And it's that's the point of the scene. The point of the scene is that they're just having some fun. Yeah.
Now, later, Geordi has discovered that Data, in fact, didn't malfunction. He was shot with one of the Sona weapons. And that caused him to go into a fail-safe defense mode where the only thing he possibly knows is right and wrong. That one's kind of interesting.
So we now know exactly what Data's ultimate ethics program looks like when it's running the show.
Yeah, shoot everyone.
Yeah, the plan is kick the shit out of all of my coworkers and then reveal the secret duckblind mission. That's the secondary subroutine. Yeah, you didn't see that in the fine print when you ordered the Data model?
The Data's understandably confused because the last thing he remembers is following some Baku children up to a lake. They go down to the planet to figure out what happened. They team up with Anij, Sojef, the male leader dude who we mentioned, and Artem, the movie's requisite annoying child.
And then cue very awkward sequence where Data chases him through the woods, and he's like, I'm all better now. I'm fixed.
Yeah, why are you afraid of me, small child?
Why are you afraid of me? I am Robot Man who tried to murder you. Yeah, it's like maybe Data just chill the fuck out, Yeah. Take it easy.
Also think about it. Data followed these kids into the woods. They were secretly aware of all the people observing them, and they're like, there's one of them's following us. This is getting creepy.
I mean, the whole thing is it's a bit off, really. They're just where's the line drawn? People having a marital dispute, and they're like, oh, I better watch this one. Better get this on the record.
Valuable insight into the social dynamics of their mating practices. And,
talk about the duck blind. They must not have been doing a very good job, because they were down there for how long, and they never noticed that they also had a big tool shed full of positronic phase variance equipment. You guys didn't pick up on that? Oh, okay. Well.
They never went into that shed, it just seemed unimportant.
Yeah. It was labeled as the not important shed, so we just figured.
Yes.
Yeah, we took them at their word.
Only shovels in here, go away.
Yeah, that's the shovel shed. Oh, they lied. Blast. Baku.
Baku.
The Baku. Yeah.
So they go back to the lake where Data was shot. They do some futzing around with underwater scenes and Data single-handedly opening a dam to be cool looking. I hope there was nothing downstream of that. Usually dams are there for a reason. But anyway.
Don't worry, the entire village is flooded now. Don't worry about it.
The practical upshot of this is that there's a cloaked ship hidden underneath the lake.
Surprise!
Yeah.
Picard, Data, and Anij boat out to the thing. So Jeff goes, no, we do not want to know why there's a ship here.
He's busy being a disappointed dad again. He's like, he was like, we don't care. Get back inside.
Technology bad.
Yeah, when you create a machine to do the work of a man, you take something away from the man. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but what level of machine? Because they have machines. They just don't have, like, robots.
Yeah, they have the irrigation. They have the metal tools. They got
the dam.
What's your level here? What's your standard?
Well, it's only it's got, right. What's the and it only lasts until they have to repair a positronic matrix, the phase variance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they go to the cloaked ship and they discover that it's actually a giant holodeck that has a hologram of the Baku village that probably could only be used if they wanted to secret all the Baku off-world for some reason, and Daido was arguably shot to protect the secret of its existence. To hammer this point home, they're immediately attacked by Asono, who is on board. They take care of them quickly, and the only particular takeaway from this is that Anij can't swim, which never comes up again, so...
Technically does, but as a part of a joke.
This was the setup for a joke later.
Yeah.
The thing. Oh God, I can really just talk about this transporter cloaked ship thing that they were going to use with the. It doesn't even make any sense. And you know what? As you're talking, like it doesn't even make any sense. Why didn't Data know about it? He's the lieutenant commander attached to this mission. It's sanctioned by Starfleet. So did everybody else know about it except Data?
Yeah. Why was Data here?
Right. If he was there to assist in the mission, what mission did they tell him that they were doing that he didn't also know about the giant Federation cloaked ship that was just sitting over there?
So back on the Enterprise, Worf has a comically large pimple, Riker has shaved, and Picard goes to his quarters and starts to mambo, which makes him deeply suspicious.
He feels great, and that's terrible for some reason.
So he returns to the planet to ask how old everyone is. First thing I would have thought of.
Yeah, that's definitely an appropriate question. Yeah.
It's like you show up at this woman's door at midnight. How old are you?
That's an awkward question to ask, just in general, when we don't know each other very well.
Also, could you stop showing up to my house at midnight? Thank you.
So Jeff expositions at them that they came to this planet from a system that had devised weapons that were threatening to destroy the entire solar system, and that was like 300 years ago. The radiation of the planet's rings continually regenerates their genetic structure, but only after they grow up so the kids aren't creepy.
Right.
Yeah, so we're a no Miri situation here then.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep, better not think about it. Just move right on.
So on his way out, Picard sees Geordi standing on a hill. Apparently the radiation made his eyes grow back. Sure. And he's there to see a sunrise.
I'm just kind of curious what happened to the implants he had.
Well, apparently those are just contacts, I guess, because it doesn't seem like they replaced his eyes with anything.
Yeah, it's not really clear if it's like something that, obviously in this case, it does appear to be like some kind of, a bit like a future contact that you can just pop in and out.
I guess I should mention, just for anyone who watched Next Gen, the series, and not these movies, at this point, Geordi has gotten rid of his visor and has some mechanical contact zoom lens looking things.
Yeah, which he uses to creep on Zephram Cochrane while he's trying to take a piss, in the woods. He's just zoomed right in on him. He's like, oh, I see him. Seeing the full Cochrane right now. Yeah, Flight of the Phoenix up there. Oh, no. Yeah, it's too much of a zoom.
Nij and Picard go for a flirty walk later. He explains his moral positions on forced relocation. He's against. And she talks about how they used to explore the universe, but now they explore moments in time. That sure makes sense. And that somehow Picard's a natural, trustworthy leader, which is weird for someone who's really young like he is, which is funny because he's not.
Right.
He's already kind of old, yeah.
I mean, it's okay to say he's old, it's subjective,
So back on their ship, Rafu is mad, but Picard lets them know that they have found their sneaky ship, and Dougherty asks Rafu to leave so we can have a good old Starfleet chat. Dougherty and the Sona have a plan that they're going to harvest the radiation from the rings and turn it into some sort of new kind of medicine that could do something, and that they are approved by the Federation Council for all this because there's only 600 people on this and it would help millions. Picard gives one of his good old moral speeches about how many people does it take before it's a bad idea. That's one of those fun ones.
Yeah, that's which I guess is a speech he should have given to himself several years earlier when he did several other forced relocations. But I guess we won't get into that.
Yeah, we ignore that. They never did that. Shush.
I guess maybe he's sort of come to terms like, maybe I was the jerk in those cases.
Well, go back and tell the Native Americans how you felt about removing them off their planet.
We still don't know what happened with that because they just froze in the middle and Wesley left, and that was the end of the episode.
That was the, I think they just left him there for the Cardassians. I think Picard said, yeah, you want to stay? Stay. See how that works out for you? Right. I'm not coming back.
Yeah, and start a Maquis and eventually get all eradicated by a mix of the Jem'Hadar and Cisco.
That's right. Yeah, good luck with that.
So Dougherty orders Picard to just leave, and by the time that he manages to complain to anyone, this will all be finished with, so stop thinking about it. Picard leaves and dramatically removes all of his captain's pips.
Dun dun dun. Decision time.
So Picard spends the night transporting equipment, using a lot of phaser rifles to the captain's yacht, which is a small ship on the bottom of the Enterprise, which we've never seen before, but is there.
It has been canon since, the early days of even TNG. It just, it's never mattered.
Yeah, you just never knew about it. That's your fault, actually. That's the viewer's problem.
They tried to script it in a couple of times, but they decided that it was cheaper to just use the existing shuttlecraft set instead.
Yep.
Which, that makes sense, yeah.
He's, of course, discovered by the crew because they're good at what they do, even when he's trying to hide things. Geordi even says that they're going with him, and he can't enjoy his new site because it would cost these people their lives, which that makes sense. Data points out that they may all be experiencing impulse control problems because of the de-aging radiation, and he's the only one that can make rational decisions, and he thinks they should go shoot some fools.
Yeah, I think his exact words were, "Let's blow Rafu's dumb face right off his dumb body," I think is what he said. Something like that.
This is like a reference to some old Western or something I'm not familiar with, and I forgot the name.
Yeah, I was going to say this is very much a Magnificent Seven Samurai sort of moment where they're all coming together. We're going to go defend the village now, so we're all in this together. Come on.
Yeah, let's lock and load. Let's kill him and get the hell out of here.
Yeah, let's punch their face a lot.
Everyone except for Riker and Geordi go down to the planet, while the Enterprise goes to the edge of the Briar Patch to force the Federation Council to reconsider what they're doing. The other plan is to just keep everyone on the planet because they probably won't start the extraction process that's going to kill everyone while this planet is still inhabited.
So this is assuming a lot about your bad guys here.
Yeah.
They definitely won't do anything morally questionable, the bad guys.
So they're trying to do something morally questionable.
So Dougherty and Rafo see the ship heading to the planet. Rafo convinces Dougherty to let him begin harvesting people from the planet early and that they should send their ships to go tell the Enterprise to turn around. But, maybe they won't want to, and he can't be responsible for what happens. Wink, wink.
Yeah, and then that's where Dougherty's like, yeah, whatever, Picard's kind of a dick, so I don't even care about it. Yeah. I told him to leave like 15 times. He doesn't want to listen to me. Well, you can suck on this Sona weapon.
Feel free, have fun.
Picard begins evacuating the Baku village using natural deposits of convenient transport blocking mineral along with some tech blocker things they brought along to keep people from being beamed away. The Sona ships arrive sooner than they expected, though, begin firing on their transport inhibitors and beam out several villagers, including Sojef, which leaves Artem all alone with Data so that they can have a subplot of them learning to like each other and Data not knowing how to have fun, even though that's been basically his entire character arc across 7 seasons, but children have to be here for kids, I guess.
Just remember to have fun at least once a day. And he's like, okay.
So after escaping the village, where they can be relatively safe in the hills until they reach the mountains and caves that will protect them for longer, during a break, Anise shows Picard how she can slow down time for them to watch a hummingbird. This seems to be pretty localized, because then a bunch more Sona ships show up, now with flying drone things that are shooting tags at them that will let them beam out people despite all this stuff. So, it's little killer drone things, but it's okay. They're beaming people out, not actually shooting them.
So it's we're not full Iraqi war yet.
The crew takes out as many drones as they possibly can while they run to shelter. Also, at some point in here that I lost track of, Worf gets a bazooka and blows up some Sona.
and quite possibly the best action sequence of all the Trek films is he pulls it out of nowhere and he just he doesn't even hit anybody with it. He just shoots a rock. Yeah, they're just tuckered out.
This lets Dr. Crusher get a really good DNA scan of one of the Sona, and she goes, "Oh my god, look at that!"
Oh.
We don't get to find this out until later, but
Yeah.
she's like, "Oh, foreshadowing."
Legend.
Oh, dun dun dun.
Meanwhile, the two Sona ships have intercepted the Enterprise. The Enterprise can't outrun them because they haven't been outfitted to move fast in this spatial gobbledygook thing. The Sona ship opens fire. Riker tries to hide from them in a nebula, but this causes them to fire one of their highly illegal super weapon things that opens a subspace tear behind the ship that's being dragged along by the warp core. Geordi ejects the core and detonates it, which closes the rift, but there's nothing stopping them from doing it again immediately after. They just don't. Riker decides to use the environment for his advantage and takes manual control of the ship with a joystick they have for some reason, and then uses the ship to collect some explosive gas, which he releases in front of the Sona ships, which then they shoot and destroy themselves, this leaving him morally clean.
This is right up there with plasma coils on Klingon warbirds. Like this was the most. Every time Riker's in command of the Enterprise and in a firefight in the movies, it's the most convoluted thing he could think of. Instead of just being like, "Yeah, why don't we just fire all the quantum torpedoes at him?" I mean, they took on a Borg cube in First Contact, and he's like, "Sonar ships, I better use the gas. Better use the gas." Like, what do you?
Can't just shoot them.
Yeah.
Too easy.
They literally just tried to suck you into a space tear, and you're like, well, what about the directives,
I mean, they're not going to shoot them because then you'd have to question why Riker just killed a bunch of people. But this way, the enemies shot themselves by trying to attack. Makes it more morally fine for your heroes, and you don't have to question things. Back in the caves on the planet, the Sona have begun firing randomly into the mountains to try to collapse the caverns that the Baku are hiding in, and it's working. The crew follows a small stream to try to find an exit, eventually being able to blow a hole in the wall to get to the other side. This works fine, except Artem does the dumb kid movie thing of losing his weird little butt-faced rat pet thing and has to run back into the caves to get it. Of course, Anij follows him, Picard follows her, they get Arden out, but then oh no, just before they can leave, the cave-in happens. Picard's fine, but Anij is critically injured, and even with the crew digging them out, they're not going to get there in time. Lucky Picard just learned how to slow down time locally for them, probably with Anij's help, so that he can't do this any other time it might be usable at all.
Yeah, they could have probably maybe just slowed down the rocks, But nope. Better just let him crush her and then just kind of sitting there for a little while, you know?
But then they'd sit there long enough for Crusher to get to them, so it's fine.
That's true, yeah.
Picard now has this magic power that is only usable here.
Yeah, the time-slowing powers are pretty tangential to literally everything.
Yeah. It's not even really, clear how it's done, who can do it, when they can do it.
What it's even doing.
What is it even doing? Is it just a feeling? Did the hummingbird actually slow down? Or does it just feel like they slowed down? Are they putting something in that Baku water?
As I say, is this altered states here?
Yeah. Are you just hallucinating time slowing down? What do you...
Oh my god, it's wink of an eye again.
Yeah.
They put stuff in the water. So they start heading towards safer caves, but then more drones suddenly appear, and you know these ones are serious because they pose before they start attacking.
Oh, that's right. They do like a little we're gonna get you kind of.
They do a standoff. They show the drones hovering there, and then they show a close-up of each of the crew looking tough.
Hey, I wish Worf had another shot in that purple space bazooka. Bet you he didn't waste it. Yeah. Yep. Idiot.
Data's able to take out all of the drones, but unfortunately not before they tag and transport both Anij and Picard.
Oh no.
We're done with the planet for now. Our point of view characters left. On the Sona ship, Dougherty thinks that now that he has Picard, he can order him to tell his people to stand down and avoid a court-martial. But then Ruafo gets mad that the Enterprise destroyed his ship, and Picard points out that Riker wouldn't have attacked the ship except in self-defense, and that was probably something Dougherty approved, so maybe he should rethink who's getting that court-martial all of a sudden. It doesn't make sense still, but I guess we'll get to that later.
Listen, they can give out multiple court-martials. I'm just going to let you know, Picard.
No, it's one at a time.
Yeah.
They've only got
Who's
one
the
judge.
worst? Yeah, right.
Everyone's to blame, and but we have to do this in order of who's the most to blame, so.
And by the way, the Sona and Baku are the same race. Just so you know. Apparently about 100 years ago, some young Baku wanted to go back to their old evil technology ways, I guess, and they tried to take over, and when they couldn't, they all had to leave. And that was about 100 years ago, so now they're dying slowly of old age.
Sucks to be them.
It's not even revealed. Okay, so how did they leave? So are there ships on the planet? Like what?
See, there used to be a second shed.
Oh, right. That was the ship shed. Oh, the second. Yeah, and it was labeled gardening supplies only. That's all it was.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And then you open it up, it's a whole entire ship hangar. Oh, wow.
So Rafa's just too mad now and is going to start the process anyway that's going to kill everyone on the planet, regardless of whether or not, he's related to them. He and Dougherty leave, all distraught about how he was going to do all this for the good of the Federation, because that works out super well. Dougherty confronts Ruafo, tells him that it's over, but predictably Ruafo grabs him and kills him with one of those face stretchy things, so I guess at least that was used later.
Foreshadowing?
Then he orders Galatane to move Picard and the other Federation people to the rear cargo hold, where they are not going to be adequately protected from radiation, to start deploying their radiation doohickey that unfolds with some pretty cool looking CG sail things that, like, I had a magazine when I was younger about this movie, and they could not shut up about how cool the CG on these solar sail things was.
I mean,
they are pretty cool.
Yeah, the effect, I think, still holds up pretty well, and I think
does.
that's probably because it's a mixture of a practical effect with the actual model mixed with the CGI of the sails, and I actually think it's still it's a very cool looking design, and I'm glad that they really went for it with like an actual like ship, like the collector was like a thing, and it wasn't just like Ruafo's ship and it was just going to shoot like a big blue beam, or and it was like this whole thing.
It's like everyone's was really on top of their game as far as getting stuff together.
Oh, everyone except for the writer's room, because I don't know what happened there. So they were like, and then the cloak ships in the river. Oh.
Surprise.
Oh, can it not go into space? Oh, it's in space. Oh.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh. On the way to the cargo hold, Picard gives another speech about how hard it must be for Galatane to have spent time with his old family and da-da-da-da-da-da, and that Galatane's just going to stand by and let all this happen, and it's awful, and it sickens him. And then he's like, is this how you're trying to negotiate with me? I guess it's working, though, because let's go take over the ship.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm not negotiating with you. You're just a coward, you asshole.
I mean, it works. He knows his man, and he calls him out. It's like, what are you doing, standing here and letting people die? It's like, oh, now I feel bad.
Yeah.
Oh, now that you've put it that way, I guess I'll do something.
So they go to communications to tell Data and Worf to do something. On the Sona Bridge, they have a countdown for the Harvester to start, but then Data brings up the captain's yacht, begins to attack them with a thing they did earlier where they shoot them with a tachyon something that makes them have to reset their shields. And they need their shields because it's a radiation problem. So they reset the shields, and then there's blinky lights that everyone's confused by, but they think this glowy thing that happened didn't actually affect anything, so it's fine and we shouldn't question it.
Yeah, everything's good to go. Okay, proceed with the plan.
Yep.
Evil plan that
Yes,
can't be foiled at all
initiate
now.
evil plan, pattern beta. Yeah, never mind that large blinding flash that occurred. Yeah, it's not important,
The collector goes off, spreads into the rings, everything's going great, but then a minute later, there's no data. And according to the instruments, the ship isn't turned on.
Yep. Just everything's not working.
So Raffo rages around for a bit and then sees a gap in the side of a panel and starts shooting things. It turns out it's the holo ship.
Oh, God. Which brings up just so many questions of, was the Sona Bridge preloaded in there? Why did they even bother to trick Ruafo if immediately he knew it wasn't going to be the real collector? Why not just beam them? Just beam him into space. Just beam him into space. Or beam him to the planet.
Anymore.
Beam him to the planet, and now he's like, well, I can't use the collector now. I'm on the planet. I don't want to die. It doesn't make... Oh, God, it doesn't make any sense.
I thought they did that at first because the ship was in the river, but no, the ship's in space now.
Yeah, now it's in space. Right, exactly. So it makes even less sense. And so I guess Data had time to program a ship bridge that he's never seen, including that sweet captain's couch that he sits on.
Oh, I will say, if you're gonna do this and you told Data to do it, we've consistently seen throughout the show that Data can just go super speed and probably could do that in about a minute and a half. So at least that holds up a little.
So I mean, I guess
Data is
maybe
magic. So
they could have had, I guess, the Sona guy. Maybe he described what it looked like. He was like, "Oh, there's buttons and there's a couch. It's red. It's got some gold trim on it." And Data's just I got it. Don't worry. And I assume he activated his Dr. Sung rocket feet to get back to the holo ship in time. It's fine. It's not a big deal.
Go-go data rocket feet.
Yeah. They don't do enough of the go-go data. They don't do enough of that.
They really should have. They had the go-go data inflatable butt before.
Yeah, I mean, he was a flotation device in the event of a water landing. So, I mean, maybe he's got rocket butt.
So back on the Sona ship, Picard, Worf, and Galatane have taken over. Worf's here now. Picard orders to destroy the Collector, but the crew have begun to reroute controls so they don't have access to weapons anymore. Then the Collector turns back on because it turns out Urafo figured out what was going on and beamed himself over from the holoship and has now turned on the Collector. According to Galatane, there is a self-destruct that they can use, but Picard has to go activate it himself, because of course he does. They can beam him on in close range, but probably not out again until he starts the self-destruct and turns the shields off, which will leave him about 2 seconds to get beamed out before he goes explode.
Why don't they just send Worf instead?
Because Captain, Super Captain.
Okay.
I mean, he's gotta talk to Urafo, and he's gotta be like, Urafo, we're getting too old for this, you know? He's gotta do the old joke, you know?
Picard was a responsible captain for 7 years. It's his turn to do some Kirk shit.
Yes.
That is true, you know, and it's
very much so.
At least in this instance where he goes full Kirk, it actually is a little bit better when he does it in Nemesis and he's like, I've got to go to the scimitar and fight Shinzon myself. And Worf's like, you know, there's like 100 Riemann warriors on there, and he's like, it's just something I have to do. Just shut your dumb mouth, Worf. You gotta have the showdown, you know, you gotta have the Rafu Picard showdown. But did they need to actually get into like a fist fight? I don't know.
Not really, but
probably not.
At least they mentioned the explosive gas before they make use of it.
10 seconds or so before. So Picard beams aboard. He starts to climb the gantry to the long drop interior thing, which is like, I had kind of not realized until I started watching this scene. Every single one of these next-gen movies has them climbing up a weird long drop tube thing.
Yep.
Yes, they do love a good tube. That's true. They love a tube down there.
Some sort of tube?
It's a simple set. It makes it seem, I guess maybe they think it makes it intense or something. I don't know.
Gives people that are afraid of heights anxiety.
They're like, how far away should he be? I don't know, probably up a ladder, I think. Yeah, they just got to climb it. Got to climb it and get shot at. You know? So
unfortunately, soon after he beams over, the Sona retake their ship, making it impossible for them to beam Picard out again, but Picard continues climbing. Rafa tries to shoot him until the ship starts venting the coolant gas stuff that may or may not explode. They said maybe. Picard gets to the controls just as the Enterprise returns. Riker manages to take out Rafa's ship in a matter of seconds, which he could have done that before, I guess, with the other ones. But like we said, they sent the only good ship out to chase the Enterprise.
And then he blew it up with gas.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, right.
So the Enterprise takes out that ship, starts rushing towards the Collector before it's too late. Picard has to, start the destruct thing, but, after he shoots the gas to, blow up Rafa, which still doesn't make any sense to me, because, Rafa's standing right there, and he goes, oh, you're not going to risk setting off the gas, and he puts down his gun. He goes, fine, I will. But he could have just shot Rafa, who's standing 2 feet away from him.
Yes.
Instead of shooting the gas at his feet and then watching it explode.
But that wouldn't be as climatic. Okay. Yeah, right.
And we wouldn't have had foreshadow the gas exploding.
Yeah, remember the gas? Do you remember that? When we put the thing in and it exploded? Remember that?
Also,
yeah,
this is objectively really stupid, because if Picard, misjudged how much that was going to explode, he hasn't started the self-destruct thing yet.
Yeah, what if it just, flared up?
Yeah, what if it knocked both of them off or killed both of them and then the thing goes off anyway?
Or, if only we had a massive starship with phasers and photon torpedoes outside of the Collector that could, I don't know, just disable the solar sails that deployed.
Start chopping it up and,
Probably doesn't work anymore, does it? No, it doesn't.
Picard sets off the self-destruct thingy because it's too late and he's accepted that he might have to die to pull this off. Fortunately, the thing starts exploding from the bottom, which lets Riker and the Enterprise race the explosion up the side of the Collector and beam Picard out just before Rafa is killed in the giant fireball.
Hooray! We won!
Also kind of dumb, but a really cool sequence.
Another right up there with the HMS Pinafore sequence. Totally stupid, but is super iconic and is featured in many highlight reels of Star Trek, is that sequence where it's just kind of it's exploding underneath it. Yeah, you're right. It is completely dumb and makes absolutely what are they what is it, a cable hanging out the back that he's got to grab on? What is this? How is this working?
Oh my god, it's literally the end of the Rocketeer. You're right. It's the end of the Rocketeer when they're flying the little heliplane thing over with the ladder.
Right. It's totally stupid, but super iconic.
It's stupid awesome.
Yeah, for that reason, I love it, and that's it.
So Worf's retaken the Sona ship because they're running out of air after the Enterprise attacked. Riker was successful in getting the Council to reevaluate the Baku plan, so everything's fine now. The crew goes and hangs out on the planet for a bit. Picard reintroduces, I guess, Galatane to his mother to start the healing process of now the kids can come back, I guess, which sure, why didn't they could have asked before, but I guess then we wouldn't have a movie. Riker worries that he's going to stop being as horny as he was when he leaves, and then Worf goes, no, you were always horny, it's fine, and then he's got, okay, I guess wasn't horny enough before this, but I'll continue being horny now.
Space Viagra, now he's good to go, right.
Data's made friends with a kid and learned to play, thus completing his redemption arc of having scared a child one time.
After he was stalking them in the woods, that's fine.
Yeah. And Picard has to leave Anij, but he definitely has shore leave and will definitely visit later, because this is what the captains always say when they have to leave their love interest on the planet.
That's true.
I think the tip-off that he's not going to come back is that Picard specifically mentions he has over 300 days of shore leave, so he's obviously not used very much of it.
Don't worry. I've never taken a vacation before, but this will be different this time.
Yes.
Yeah, he's coming back for some space poon, and spoiler alert, he doesn't. So, yeah, just write that down in the vlog.
So then the crew beam back to the Enterprise, the end, everything's great. So if there's one thing that I think with this movie and most of the other next-gen movies, they took Star Trek and tried to do Indiana Jones adventure-y stuff with it, and I think they're doing that pretty well, but it does lead to a lot of the stuff that we've mentioned a lot of, this was cool. Did it make any sense? No.
You know, it's a weird thing, right? So Generations came out, right? And it was kind of just whatever, not a big deal, you know?
Yeah, it wasn't great, wasn't awful.
Right, it was just whatever. It was okay, it's your first, foray into it. You're kind of getting kicked off here, looking to see what you do. And then they came out of the gate hot with First Contact, and everybody loves First Contact. That's everybody's either first or second favorite Star Trek film for the most part. And when you consider that they went from that level to this, it's almost head scratcher in a lot of ways as to how they fumbled it in such a way. It's almost bizarre that it's like the quality went down in some regards, specifically with the story. That's my big issue is the story itself. The action is fairly good. We're giving Worf hell about his bazooka, but the action's good. The music is good. The characters are good. The actors are great. The visuals are great. I love the introduction of the Sona. We learned so much about them and the Baku. There's a lot of world building happening there. The Briar Patch visuals are so good. All of this stuff is so good. But then they're and we have this stupid plot about a collector and this stupid plot about a cloak ship. And it's all this weird stuff that it's I wish they had just spent a little bit more time to really narrow it down. And I think it would have been much better. But right, there's a lot of fun action adventure stuff like you mentioned, for sure.
Yeah, they could have given it one more pass and trim out some of the dumb stuff. And I think it would have worked out okay. But I thought it was interesting because I hadn't quite put it together, and I do agree. It really starts going off the rails right around when they find the ship on the planet, when they're all going around down there, which actually ties immediately in to my unified theory of what happened to Star Trek after Next Generation. Because everyone knows that first season Next Generation was pretty bad. I'll still argue that it's not the worst of all of Star Trek, but it's pretty bad, especially for how good Next Generation got.
Yeah. Comparatively speaking, it's rough.
Everyone knows that the impetus for them to get better was that Riker grew a beard. That was the shift in the show.
Yes,
I
the
see
beard.
where it's going now.
Right around when they discover the cloaked ship, he shaves off his beard.
And so things fall apart pretty much instantly.
Yeah. So even though he got the beard back by the next movie, it's just broken now. It's not the same beard, and so it just never gets as good again after that.
That's I like the meta construct there. I agree. It is interesting that the movie does fall apart right there at the essentially the beginning of the second act, and it just kind of falls apart a bit. There is an interesting bit. The line that Riker gives to Dougherty about why it is that Picard's back on the planet which is he needs to explain what happened to Data because his future in Starfleet may depend on it. That is something that is used as kind of a throwaway, but it's actually a very interesting construct, a very interesting idea that they spend zero time with because they're like, oh, there's nothing wrong with Data. He just got shot in the neck. It's totally fine.
No, it's fine.
They had an opportunity there to create something that would have been much different and much more interesting from a character perspective with that idea of like, we have to like try to save Data's career. And that would have tied back into one of the most iconic episodes of TNG, which is, of course, Measure of a Man. And we obviously got a lot of that from Star Trek Picard show. But instead, it was like, no, that was nothing. It was actually just big-ass cloak ship.
Yeah, because it makes sense. Like, you can't have your android break for no readily apparent reason and then be like, well, I guess it's fine now. Since nobody particularly knows how he functions or works, I mean, it wouldn't be that much different than a human having just a random psychological break for no readily apparent reason. You'd need to be able to explain why this happened and that it's unlikely to happen again if you're going back into a stressful duty situation.
100%. So it makes sense. And that's where it's like, right as and that's funny too, because that's the last like really good line of the movie, which is where he's literally getting his beard shaved off by Troy. And right after that, we cut back to the planet, and then that's when Data's like, they fixed me. He's like chasing him through the streets, and it's like this crazy. And then, you got sad dad back there, and, and then this ridiculous plot kind of takes hold. And it just frustrates me because this had the opportunity to become something much better than what it was.
Yeah, not to rewrite the whole thing, but you're right. Like, if you focused in on Data, they had this bit in there, and that could go back to like the Measure of a Man sort of machine versus human debate. But also, like you mentioned, why doesn't Data know about the ship? Because it doesn't make any sense. And now, I think it was called Clues, if I'm remembering the episode right. I haven't looked at it in a while.
The episode where there was, they had to sort of do a redo of a bunch of memory erasing things going on.
Yeah, and then in that episode, it's demonstrated that Data can be ordered to withhold information by a superior. Correct. And he's like morally obliged to not reveal it.
Right. And that's the thing is that would have been a much more interesting thing is if Data was briefed on the mission when he got there, then he's like, this is not right. And then Dougherty's like, no, well, tough shit. Like, the Federation Council's approved it, so we got to deal with it, And then it kind of progresses from there. Maybe Data continues to kind of rebuck it, and then Dougherty is the one that kind of interferes with Data systems. He returns to the Enterprise, and then the Picard's like, what the hell did you do to Commander Data? And then they have to go on an adventure to kind of figure out what happened to him on that planet. And then they uncover like, oh, there's this whole thing going on here, and Data was actually utilizing his proper level of ethics, not the subroutine ethics, and he was trying to argue that they shouldn't be doing this. And it would have been a much more interesting plot point. And then they could have taken it to the Federation Council and been like, this is wrong. And like, and actually had those moments as opposed to it just happening off. Like Riker convinces the Federation Council to hold off on it in like a minute off screen and then immediately returns back to the planet. And it's like, well, if they weren't that shaky on it to begin with, well, maybe Picard could have done something about it. And it's like, it's very bizarre that it worked. Like they just kind of like rushed. I felt like after they found the ship, they wanted to rush directly into the action. And
okay, we've done the setup, and now we need to have enough plot bits to get us to these particular set pieces, and whatever they need to be, we'll just sort of put them together, and it'll work, right?
Which they did. Like, they wanted to do Action Man Picard, and they've said that in several things. And when they started the movies, they wanted to transition Picard from the like stand back kind of dramatic figure that he was in the series into more of a central hero character, which is how you get Action Man Picard.
Right. And that, and that wasn't just even the studio too. Like, that was Sir Patrick himself, which, is an interesting thing. And I think it's an entirely separate podcast about that.
Yeah.
His perspective on who Picard is, but he was, I actually have one of these books here, like, that I have on my shelf behind me, which actually has a couple of behind the scenes featurettes behind a couple of different productions, including this one. And, Michael Piller, the guy who did the screenplay, actually did a little interview, and he talked about how he sent the first story treatment to Sir Patrick, and he sent notes back saying, no, I want to redo kind of what we did in First Contact, where he's kind of action hero Picard. And that's not how they originally wrote it. So, and I feel like you get that sense because it's right as you find the holodeck, and that's where the action starts to slowly start to pick up as the mystery is being resolved, like unraveled, that's when the movie falls apart because it feels like they almost tacked all that action Picard stuff on after the fact. And I think that kind of stands out.
I feel like this also kind of suffers a little from having to keep the general Star Trek continuity going. Because trying to sort of merge the like next generation hopeful optimism Federation with the sort of we're starting to go into the grim dark DS9 Federation, it doesn't really mesh very well. Because you have a Federation that apparently is willing to do something that is just very obviously against its core tenets as a sanctioned thing that they then get talked out of immediately by the crew of the good ship that is morally right and upstanding.
You're right to say like the blending was not done. And that's why I say like earlier, like we needed that sequence where Picard goes to the Federation Council and does the actual advocation for the Baku and against this mission. Because then we can see, like, they set it up earlier in the movie where they're like, oh, after our losses of the Borg and the Dominion, and it's like all this stuff, and there's like a little bit of setup there for it, but we don't see the need for this magical space particle that's going to save billions. Like, well, show me demonstrate that. Like,
what's the motivation here?
Right.
The basic argument that they're putting forth is that there's 600 people on the planet, and relocating them and like destroying their way of life basically is worth it because it will get us slightly better medicine than what we have now. But it's not like they have bad medicine. They have like miracle level medicine.
Right. Right.
Everyone lives to be 150. It's fine.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, you're right. The like demonstrable need isn't there. And I do think if they had done something more, I've always been critical of the direction that they took the Federation after DS9 into this like morally corrupt organization. But this would have at least been able to bridge the gap a little bit because it goes from the core upstanding light and shining hope of morality in the universe from Next Generation to just as corrupt as any modern world government in DS9. But you don't really have the transition there.
Right. I mean, the thing is admirals, especially in TNG, it was a very big trope. The admiral shows
Evil
up.
admirals.
Yeah, they're up to no good.
Yeah.
They're doing something wrong. Like it's bad news. They're doing something.
I mean,
shifty.
they had that even as far back as original series. Anyone above the rank of captain is evil.
Right. They're doing something
or at least
crazy.
Suspect.
They're very suspicious. But what they demonstrated, I feel like, in the TOS films is that the Federation President, Federation Council, is like a different group of people that is separate from just the Admiralty of Starfleet. And
more
I felt
civilian
like
government in control.
Right. And I feel like what should have kind of like part of the things that could have happened here, which is that Dougherty actually was lying to the Federation Council and he tricked them into thinking that it was one thing instead of the other. And he was kind of looking at it from his, and maybe not necessarily you make him a sympathetic, villain in that he maybe had like a serious loss in his life, and if they had this metaphysic particle, then his wife or his son or daughter or whatever could have been saved, and that's why he's like super like tunnel vision on it, and he tricked the Federation Council, and like you could have just added this layer into it, well, not demonizing the Federation Council, but kind of restructuring the focus on Dougherty being the primary villain, as opposed to literally a character that did basically nothing other than order Picard out of the Briar Patch like 50 times and then just died.
They do leave it open enough that it's not definitely a corrupt Federation thing. It could be this like, this is this one admiral's pet project, and for whatever reason, he sees the war going bad. He's had personal trauma, any of the things. He's just laser focused on this one thing, and it's his particular problem. They don't really go into it enough to reveal which one you would have.
So this brings me to my big issue with this movie, is that they, like you just said, they don't go into that plot point enough. And actually the way that the movie is structured is Picard is kind of in the wrong. And that's the issue, is the Sona have the technology to harvest the metaphysic particles. The planet that the Baku are on is inside Federation space. The Federation has approved the mission. They want these particles, and they have agreed that they're going to relocate these indigenous population to another planet that they can go and live out on. And Picard is the one that disobeys orders constantly, invites himself to a mission that he has no business being a part of, and then goes behind the Admiral's back in order to try to convince the Federation Council. And yeah, it all works out because they're the heroes, but they don't do a sufficient level of explanation as to make the Sona come across as the quote-unquote the bad guys, but really, they need the metaphysic particles, the Federation needs it, and they've been hired to do this job, and he's literally just interfering with it because he doesn't morally agree with it, and they did not do a good enough job as portraying them as the bad guys. Now, they crank it up with Raffo at the end, where he kind of just goes off the rails, but throughout the rest of the movie, like, Raffo's kind of like, he's like, dude, like, your android attacked my people on the planet and took them hostage. And he's like, dude, your guy shot my ship and damaged it. And he's like, well, your guy's like, oh, well, we're going to kind of investigate. He's like, I have a job to do here and you're ruining it, you know? And it's like, I kind of sympathize with him in that regard. It's like, yeah, Picard, why don't you just fuck off, you know? Like, why don't you just go like, I'm trying to, like, they hired me to do this. Like, what is your problem? Like, you know?
Watching this movie again, after one having just gone through in order the entire original series run, and not having engaged with, like, Next Generation in a while, it made me realize the thing that I miss about the Next Generation era of Star Trek, and something that I feel maybe in like a nostalgic way is missing in a lot of our media in general. And I just wish they'd gone harder on that, which is just having a strong, unambiguous moral stand. Because Picard is not really interested in debating whether or not getting this particle is right or how much good it could do. He like sees this, he's like, this is wrong, it's unambiguously wrong, and nothing that you could say is right to come of it could make it any less wrong, so I'm going to oppose the wrong thing that you're doing. And they could have gone more into that.
Right.
Most certainly.
So like I was looking this up, and this could either be viewed, we can get into a little bit of an ethical discussion. This could either be viewed, and I don't think it's because of the ambiguity in the movie, I think it's because of my unfamiliarity with ethics. Like, I'm not saying that I know enough about this to say directly, which is why I think it could have two different views. This is either a deontological ethics versus utilitarian consequentialism argument, in which Picard is working off of a moral framework as dictated by the Federation, where he has a certain set of rules he's always going to follow, and deviating from that set of rules is wrong, whereas Admiral Dougherty is working off of a utilitarian consequentialism argument where he's saying that the thing he's doing is going to have a positive impact on the greatest number of people. And that could have a debate there. Or something that I just learned about is there's actually two different forms of utilitarianism that you could be looking at here, where one is called act utilitarianism, where you judge an individual action as an individual action and only look at the good and bad that would come from that interaction individually, which would be like, you know, do I do this? If I do this one thing, it will have this particular set of consequences that's only applicable to this one situation. Or you have rule utilitarianism, where you imagine actions as a group, say, killing someone. You say killing someone is always a wrong as a group of things. Therefore, killing someone will always be judged as a wrong action no matter what the other circumstances.
Very situational versus a rule that applies to all situations.
Yeah, it's very like, this particular situation, maybe killing someone is justified because they, you know, are on a killing spree. But in the other one, we've decided that killing people is always bad, so you have to try to find another morally right course of action here.
And I think that one of the bigger issues is that it's not quite clear his stance. Like, is it situational or is it based off of the rules? And I think that it's like a mixture of a little bit of both in his viewpoint, but it's not clearly described. And that's why I feel like instead of shooting his way to a resolution, the more appropriate kind of philosophical resolution should have been Picard advocating on behalf of them to someone that would have been able to articulate his point of view better, as opposed to just, well, why don't we just blow him up? You know, why don't we just shoot Raffo? You know, just blow his fucking face off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like they brought up these really complex ethical problems, and they resolved them by him just being like, oh, I'll just take the piffs off and I'll just, you know, just head down there and hide in the caves, you know? Like, that's not really, like, that's not what It doesn't really, like, what even was the end goal there? Like, what was he just going to hide there for forever? Like, what was the plan?
Yeah.
Apparently, and just hope that Riker or someone managed to get the ship out to let somebody know and then come and rescue them. And
wait, well, like, that's a huge risk. Like, what if Riker came back and was like, nah, that they were like, no, we're going to keep doing this. And then he was going to be like, all right, sorry, Baku, like, we got to go. Like,
Yeah,
like,
sorry.
what was the goal? Like, it was just like, it was a very weird way of going about it. And Dougherty, I feel like the issue is really his interactions with Admiral Dougherty, because Dougherty is obviously the opposite. His ethical viewpoint is the opposite of Picard's, and they did not share enough sequences together to go through that debate more, whereas most of the sequences just involve Dougherty just ordering Picard out of the briar patch.
Yeah, they started it, and that's actually the best like scene Picard has in the movie. When Dougherty's trying to explain his position, because it's only 600 people. So, well, how many people before it's a bad decision? Like, does it need to be 1,000 people? 1,000,000 people? How many people before it's wrong to do?
Right, and then Dougherty's like, listen,
Go away.
Just go away. Why don't you just piss off and just get out of the briar patch like I told you like 4 days ago, you idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, he's definitely going to listen to you now, for sure, Dougherty. Yeah, he's already disobeyed your orders like 40 times, but yeah.
They should have done a debate, because that was one of the strengths of Next Generation as a show, was that they did have many episodes where there was no action scene at all, and they just sat down and talked about something for an hour.
Right, and that is, and I understand, like, it's, okay, so it's not a movie, and, I mean, so that's not a TV show, where TV shows kind of, you can kind of do that. This is a movie, and you gotta, play it up for general audiences and Star Trek fans, and I get the complexities of that situation. It's just, again, like, if they had just restructured some of this stuff, and I feel like if they had removed some of the plot holes from this movie, that it would have probably been a little bit better to digest some of the short-ended philosophical debates. Like honest to goodness, like, if you remove the plot of the holo ship, nothing about the movie changes.
sort of like, a random plot device, but you could do that so many different other ways and it'd be the same movie.
And I think the thing with the movie is, even if you want a slightly more action-y movie and not just a space drama, which I would have liked all of the Next Gen movies better if they were still space dramas, but they already did it. This is the thing that's always confused me about a lot of the Next Generation movies, is original series, Undiscovered Country already did this. They had a blend of action movie set pieces and just philosophical and political debates. And it works really well. It's one of the better original series movies.
You need to sort of get some good pacing going on. Your action scenes can't all be loaded in the back end. You need to sort of sprinkle them out a little bit, and you need to have beats and paces. And so it's not just a sprint toward the end once you hit a certain point.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing, is like all logic goes out the window once after that philosophical discussion with Dougherty, the shortened version of it. Like, that's like logic is now completely left the movie, and it's just a disaster after that. Like, that's when, like, the third act is when this movie really just goes into orbit off the rails, and it's mind-boggling that it was literally, like you just said, like, they just wanted to backload all of the action sequences to the rear, and it makes no sense. Like, it's just so confusing that they would go with this direction, considering their past successes. And it's almost like, did you not learn from your previous mistakes and successes? Like, it's like they just, I don't know, like they just started from scratch. It was very weird.
Yeah, it's really interesting looking at it as a film history perspective. I'm not pretending to know enough about this, but you have First Contact, excellently written, best of the TNG movies. Then this, which is like, the writing's starting to go downhill. Then Nemesis was like writer's strike.
Right. It was writer's strike. And I mean, I could talk all day about Nemesis, but like, it got worse. Like, Generations was okay. First Contact was really great. Everybody loved it. And they were like, what if we did not that again? And we just kept ruining it. And it was just, and it felt like, it's again, like, and it frustrates me so much because there's so many fantastic elements and ideas being presented here that this could have been an epic movie that really knocked everybody's socks off. But they just, especially that third act where they're like, we're gonna have them running out in the woods, and they're gonna be talking about breast being firmer and like all that. Like, it's like, what is the what am I watching? Like,
Yeah, that was
this?
just strange.
Yeah, and like, why are they talking about this? Like, people are dying. Like, families are being ripped apart, and they're like, "Have you noticed your breast started to firm up?" It's like, what is the tone here? What am I watching?
Also, why is everyone teenagers? Every adult on this planet seems to be somewhere in their 40s. Why did everyone revert to teenagers?
Yeah, because that's just how it worked. I don't know.
Well, the previous generation of teenagers, they became the Sona, you see. They rebelled.
I mean, again, like and then it brings up a question like, so the Sona always knew that the rings on the planet had that ability. And I understand, like, and this is another huge plot hole. It's like, I understand that, like, they had to kind of like, the Briar Patch and the Baku planet is inside Federation space, but you tell me they can't have just slipped in and grabbed the radiation and then just dipped out? Like, the Federation would have ever even known?
Yeah, the Federation didn't even know this planet was here.
Right, because they would have fucking taken the ring's energy earlier. They would have already done it. They would have done it during the war because they needed it. They were probably panicking about that. Like, so it's just kind of like, it's very weird. It's very weird. And then they all like return, and like Rafo's like still like super bitter about it. And I get that. We don't see how that breakup occurred, so maybe he's just driven by vengeance. But they don't lean enough into that like as this big reveal. It's just, they portray one Sona as like a sympathetic person who's guilty over what occurred and what's happening now, and then Rafo as like just crazy person. But we don't get his story. We just hear like they were really upset about the fact that they couldn't use space Nintendo Switches or whatever, and they were really mad about it, and so we banished them from the planet somehow. And and then we don't hear like what happened, like who's Rafa, like is Rafa's mom like on the planet dying? Why doesn't he care? Like, what's going on there? And we don't explore any of that. So he's not even a sympathetic villain in that regard.
Yeah, he's barely understandable.
There's just so much missing.
I think this gets to one of the core issues that this movie has, really, which is it's an odd one because they didn't want to use the Baku as characters at all in any way. You get like, first you don't know who they are, and it's kind of intriguing, like, who are these untechnological people? Why is the Federation here? Then they like immediately switch it into, well, they're like anti-technological people, but they are very, very advanced technologically. And then they still treat them as if they have no agency in this situation. Because they never go down and be like, well, now let's explain. Like, we're here to do this thing. We could take this natural resource that you are relying on, but it would have these massive medical benefits for millions and millions of people. Like, what do you think about that? You're ethical people. Let's have a discussion. Would you like to move? And also, like, we supply you with the medication. It might not even affect your quality of life that much. Like,
you could potentially live wherever you like, and you'll be able to live forever as well as everybody else in the galaxy. So that would be kind of cool.
Right. They don't even explore any of those. I mean, of course, if they sit down with sad, disappointed dad, of course he's going to be like, just get back inside. We don't care about such things, and it's...
But that's just because he's so Jeff.
Yeah, but they didn't even have the thing. They couldn't even have the, like, we're extreme pacifists. The fact that you're in war means anything that we help you do is, makes us complicit in this war you're having.
We've run into those folks before.
Right, and that's the thing, is, like, the pacifist thing came out of, like, nowhere, and it's like, it was like, we're anti-technology, and I was like, ooh, that's very intriguing. And then when it came time to defend their town, they're like, also, we're like super pacifists, so we're not going to help you, and we're just going to just run around in circles and get shot off our bridges and stuff.
Which they didn't even talk about. Like, this is an extreme pacifist society that's lived in an insular community for 300 years. Now, all of a sudden, all these aliens are here. They're being attacked by like, people that they should know, but for some reason don't. And then, like, how do you feel about this? You've lived on this planet for 300 years, and all of a sudden spaceships are shooting at you.
So how are you going to react?
Right. It's almost like if they were explorers and they understood the construct of exploration, they should have known that eventually someone was going to find them because they understand the construct of exploration. Now, could they have known that especially considering the fact that they sent like half their, teenage population off the planet, God, geez, I hope they never come back to the planet that keeps them alive for forever, or they don't tell anybody about it in like a drunken stupor. And so it's like they didn't have that situation where we cut back to the village and it's just sad dad and, Ange, and they're just sitting there like having that conversation with the townspeople, and they're like, well, we knew this would eventually happen. What are we going to do now? Like we never get their proper perspective, their proper point of view. They don't treat, like you said, they don't treat them with any respect. Not only does the Federation and Picard not treat them that way, but also the script doesn't treat them in that way at all.
Their props, their scenery, their background, they are the MacGuffin of the story, as opposed to actually being.
And they don't want to go into the Sona either, because their entire thing is they were exiled from immortality. But now this is like not something that people generally are born having an expectation of, and it makes sense that they would have become weirdly obsessed with cosmetic surgery and life elongation and all these things.
Right. Yeah.
But like we don't see any, like we see the plastic surgery, and as far as I can tell, it's in there to make us feel like they're even more villainous because they are obsessed with plastic surgery, which, as we all know, makes you a horrible person.
Haven't you ever seen Escape from LA?
Yeah, and that's again, like that's the thing, like they needed that sequence where the Enterprise goes back to Earth, sits down with the Federation Council, and they could even had a situation where they have to talk to Sad Dad and Ange and be like, I know you don't want to leave, and I know you hate technology, but you need to come with me to advocate for your people's right to stay here. And then they could have had Data step in and be like, I've observed the Baku for a number of months, and this is what I like. They're a peace-loving, full society, and they don't deserve, like, have that philosophical discussion and present it in a way that creates them as like a people and not just, like you said, props. Like they're literally just props and exposition.
You could do that, and you could have this. That could even lead directly into your stakes escalation, because right now you're talking about, should we move them off planet and like possibly diminish their quality of life a little bit and make them no longer immortal, but basically just move them. Then you bring them over to the council, they all have this talk. Oh no, suddenly they both get sick. Turns out that living in this radiation for too long makes you permanently bound to it for MacGuffin-y reasons.
Oh, there you go. Exactly.
Now moving them will kill them. Oh no.
Right, and Dougherty doesn't want to respond to the stand down command, and they have to race the Enterprise back there to save the rest of the Baku, and then you still get your fight, because he has to fight the rest of the Baku ships. You still get your action sequence.
Yeah.
And you could even have, like, when they're going to Earth, have an early action sequence where some of the Sona show up and try to stop them, sort of thing, and there's like a firefight, and can cameo some other random ships that could show up. You could have all sorts of interesting stuff there. But it'll be sort of a minor fight that's sort of like, oh no, these guys are serious about doing this. Right. They're trying to like kill us in order to prevent us from, getting our say in.
And none of that involves a hollow ship. None of that involves, hiding in a cave because of, mineral deposits or whatever, or setting up what appears to be mobile heating lamps that they're calling transport inhibitor. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it just, that would have been, and I know we are kind of essentially just rewriting the plot here, but it would have just, like, there were so many other options that, again, like, if they had just spent a little bit more time with this script, it would have been better. And I don't know all the influences, but yeah, it's obviously and they didn't do very good box office wise. Like, it was a flop at the time. It was a huge flop. And I think,
if we're doing a little rewriting, I do have to say that I would have loved at the Federation Council, they're putting their case forward, and a Vulcan stands up and it's like, what about the goods of the many? And it's like, yeah, there are the goods of the many, but there is more things than just the utilitarian good there. You can sort of really address that sort of point directly, and I think that'd be a very good opportunity to go into the full dynamics of why this is wrong at that point in the movie, as sort of the mid movie climax before we go home, go back to the planet and try to save everybody.
Yeah, I agree. Like I think that one of the things, obviously one of the most popular philosophical quotes that people like to throw out there from Star Trek is the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. And I think it would have been a fun idea to maybe challenge that construct a little bit and kind of upend it in some regards, and I think Picard would have been a perfect vehicle for that.
Which they could have done in a really interesting way. Like, one of the things that I came across, like, not directly for the movie, but this seems to be trying to do what is called the wrong answer critique of act utilitarianism, which is basically saying that according to this moral framework, you get into situations where you can say, well, it's morally right for a doctor to kill one person and harvest their organs so that he can give it to 5 other people who will live, because if you're only looking at that one action, you hurt one person and save 5 people, so it is morally right to do this, even though any person can common sense see that that is morally objectionable.
Right. The whole idea of like the train track scenario, you know, where a train's coming down and you have the opportunity to either save one person or save 5 people. Which one do you choose? You know, it's a difficult decision, and it's worth a really good script. And Star Trek is the perfect vehicle for it. And Captain Picard is the perfect character to bring up those tough moral dilemma choices. You know, I mean, this is the guy that didn't want to blow up the crystalline entity. You know. Yeah.
It's like, you know, it's a life form. It might be intelligent. We could maybe talk to it. You know, let's see if we could figure something out here.
And he's like, what if I just hid in the caves and we just blew up Raffo and just made him set his fucking face on fire? Speaking of which, you know what bothers me about that sequence? About, like, why didn't they beam Ruafo out?
Yeah, like he should have grabbed him. Haha, now you're arrested.
Yeah, right, right, and then make him suffer for his consequences in a moral way, as opposed to just, I don't know, just setting himself, just getting set on fire, just blowing up, you know?
I don't know if this is why they did it, but it reminds me of something I was reading about the making of the Stargate movie, where they said that originally they just had the enemy's ship explode, and that tested badly with audiences because they wanted to see the guy get blown up, like, in person. So they did a scene where they blew up the evil alien, like, on screen so that people would like seeing the bad guy get punished more.
He deserved it. Raw. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Raw deserved it. Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, it is possible, but that's also an action movie.
Yeah.
You know? And maybe that is the issue here, that they're trying to blend a philosophical construct of Star Trek with action films, which again worked really well in First Contact, but here it was a bit of a mess.
Well, see, First Contact had the advantage of using a accepted, like, enemy. Like, the Borg are... You already know the Borg. They've been set up. You know everything about them if you're a fan. If you don't, they're basically just zombies. They're pretty morally inambiguous. Like, the Borg are bad. You get the Borg here, they're bad. There's not really much of a discussion.
Right.
Yeah, they're going to do nasty things to you if you do nothing, so...
Right, and there's not a lot of... I mean, there is... Obviously, it's proven through Star Trek, you can save people from being assimilated. You can de-assimilate people, but in that situation, like there's a sequence in First Contact where Picard shoots one of the crew members who's being assimilated, like, on the floor. Mm-hmm. And he is taking the opportunity to essentially give him a mercy death, because he can't just be like, oh, let me grab him and run him down to Dr. Crusher and we'll get these, Borg drones out of him. Like, we don't have the time. Like, the ship's being taken over and there's 5 more drones heading right towards me, you know? So it's like, when they're in that prime element, it's like there's no ambiguity. Like, they are a threat and they are there to hurt you and harm you. And if you have the opportunity to try to save them, you can, which is a great kind of moral question and stuff like that. But in that construct there, in that specific context, I should say, like, there is no opportunity to do that. So it's acceptable for him to just, shoot those guys with the Tommy gun in the holodeck. Like, it makes sense, like, it fits in the narrative and the context of this film. Whereas opposed to, like, if they found, like, a derelict Borg ship and they were like, let's just blow it the fucking hell. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they would have been like, well, hold on, like, maybe we can save some of these people. But it's they don't really give that time to breathe in this movie with the Sona. And for that reason, it just falls flat with them kind of being those villains that deserve to be blown up.
I could, like, see it as them introducing something else. Like, if they did the original thing with the Romulans, you have a known entity. You have a known entity alien. You don't have to spend a lot of time setting them up. You don't have to explain what they're about. They wanted an unambiguously, like, bad villain that you could know is bad and not have to explain. Right. But they didn't give you that. They gave you stretchy face alien.
Right, who, as I said earlier, from our perspective, was really just hired to do a job gets attacked multiple times, calls for reinforcements, and then is like, what are we supposed to do? And then even after all of that, they're like, we'll send drones down to tag them individually. Like, are you 600 people? They're going to send drones down for six. Like, they're putting a great level of effort into not killing those people. And yes, there is the familial connection, so there's some complexities there. But it's like they're trying hard not to screw this up, but at the same time, the movie's presenting them as these cartoonish villains, so it's almost confusing. Like, how are we supposed to feel about them? It's not clear.
So they're both trying to be really nice guys, but also evil at the same time, and it's really, mixed signals.
You run into the same kind of problem. Like, Star Trek historically doesn't do well with the forced alliance with your enemy thing. Like, they've done it a few times, but not in a sustained way. You've gotten the, like, individual, like, I can get along with the Romulan plot line. But, like, in Deep Space Nine, where they kept allying themselves with the Cardassians on and off, it's like, you're working with a fascist dictatorship. Why are you doing that? It doesn't make any sense.
This seems like a bad idea, guys.
So in this one, they have, like, they explain, like, these are absolutely the worst people in the world to ally yourselves with. But we did it, and now we can't really explain why, so...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that brings me back to that sequence with the neck touching. Mm-hmm. They're slaving people. They produce, like, the worst drug ever. It's like they're these bad guys. And then they're like, also, I'm getting a bit of a stiffy under the desk here because you're rubbing on my neck. You know what I mean? It's like, what am I doing? Like, what are we doing here? Like, this is not, like... This should have been in the conference room, briefing Picard, getting super serious, showing a map, of some terror. You know what I mean? Like, getting very, like, instead we're like...
Here's the situation of the war that's going on right now, that's raging right off screen.
Now I just have this idea in my head of them, like, super serious briefing. I was like, why are you touching his neck?
Right, yeah. Well, you haven't done that in a while. In the conference room, right, yeah. What you're doing to my neck. Yeah, it was just, like, I get that they were trying to set up that whole situation with the radiation impact, but it was not the right time for it.
No.
And that, again, is like, my issue with this movie is they just fail to really dive into this Sona being the bad guy, other than just portraying them as the twisty, mustache-twirling villains, but then their actions don't even reflect that. It's very, very bizarre. Other than Raffle right at the end where he's like, I'm launching this collector right now. I don't give a shit. And
I'm frustrated and desperate suddenly.
Right,
Surprise.
exactly. Surprise, I'm going to kill everyone on the planet, which was also a bit of an escalation. Because this is the same guy who's like, I'll send drones down to tag each 600 colonists individually. And then he's like, well, what if we just put them in the lower cargo hold without the proper shielding? And it's like, well, I don't get it. Like, where are you at with this? If you were just going to kill them anyways, then why did you even bother to bring the drones down there?
Yeah, you never really get like, why are you working with the Federation at all? Like, you've gotten to this point. Maybe for whatever reason you needed Dougherty to agree to let you to the planet, but now you're here and you're completely cut off from all outside communication. Why are you still working so hard to stay within Federation guidelines?
Right, he tries so hard.
You obviously have them massively outnumbered.
And there's just so many things like this that it just piles up and just it just raises questions they never really address, and because you have to keep the movie moving, and so there's opportunity to sort of either restructure all of this or to have a lot more content to set up all this good stuff and actually have it pay off, as opposed to this is kind of something referenced off screen. This other thing is not too important, so we're going to downplay it. And suddenly, we're running through the hills. That's all we need to care about.
I think my only problem that I really have with this is that it's trying to do both things. It's an Indiana Jones movie that's trying to have a strong moral center, and you can't do both. Like, Indiana Jones can't run into the tomb and steal the idol thingy and then later have a, passing discussion about how wrong it is for Western culture to appropriate artifacts from other nations.
But didn't you...
Right, though. Right, exactly. Right, exactly. Yeah, it's you're 100% right.
Now, I will give the movie props for sort of setting up this weird alliance situation with the Federation, trying to get a bunch of new friends with the aliens right at the beginning that they're meeting with. Because it's like, they were kind of, they're becoming Federation protectorates. I know they're not, much use for anything as far as
Oh,
friendship
you mean
goes, but,
Eugene Jeffaux? Yes, right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, it's like, the Federation just trying, it's like apparently desperate for friends. And so they're kind of going out of their way to be friendly with anyone that just kind of shows up. And so it's sort of, maybe suggestive that there's this desperation going on here. But other than that, they don't really make the sell on that. It's like, okay, there's all this stuff going off screen, but it's not important. We're going to focus on this other thing.
Well, that's kind of a little disappointment and kind of a screw you to Next Generation fans. Because that part of the movie works. It's weird. Like, it's put in as a joke because, like, they do something silly to Picard and make him wear a weird hat. But, like, he does it, and he's being a diplomat, which he's trained to do. And then they make this offhand things like, do you remember when we used to be explorers? Like, you were diplomats. There were like 20 episodes where you went somewhere and did exactly this. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, right. That line is very weird. I will say, like, I do like the first act of this movie is very lean and almost feels like it was written by a different person.
Yeah, it probably was.
It probably was, to be perfect. Or maybe it was actually, this part was actually written by Pillar and the rest of it was written by someone else.
Rick Berman showed up and then,
he's like, I was Purple Space Bazooka, and because it's like, it's very like when you like the opening sequence with the duck blind is great, super cool, very interesting. Even though there's parts of it that are like, okay, this is kind of dumb, but you don't really think about it because you're like, oh, this is really interesting. Like, what's going on with Data? And they cut immediately to the Enterprise, and they're moving, they're grooving, they're walking and talking like this is an episode of The West Wing. Like this is like they're going and going and going. And then he's like, cuts into the room. He's talking to Dougherty. He puts the headpiece back on. He's back out there doing diplomat. Like they're constantly progressing forward, and it's very lean, very effective. And then it just kind of goes off the rails a little bit. But I do like that part because we are getting. I feel like that sequence, that first act, I should say, and that whole sequence on the Enterprise there as well, is where we're seeing the TNG crew. And then it turns back. That's why I say it feels like it's written by two different people, because then he turns back into Action Hero Picard.
We go from one universe to another, and they are very similar in a lot of ways, but there are just so many disconnects. It's like, what?
Right. Yeah, it is very weird. Something else I thought about too, like, with Dougherty hanging out with these bad guys and the, quote unquote bad guys in the Sona, like, it would have made even more sense for Dougherty to kind of get a little obsessed with what they were doing as well, maybe get influenced by them. Maybe he was getting some of the cosmetic surgeries done, and he was kind of like, yeah, these Sona guys are pretty cool. They're stretching out my face, I'm looking young. They got these sexy little, cat women running around here in their tight little outfits. This is a pretty cool ship. We don't have that on the Federation ships. We got tea and shit. Like, this is pretty cool. I like this, and, maybe he's like a bit corrupted and they have to kind of challenge that, and
well, see, if they'd bothered to make the Sona sympathetic villains at all, you could have had that. Like, it would have made more sense for him to know and be slightly on their side because of that. Like, when they get into the actual arguments, it's like, do you know what the Baku did to these people?
Right.
Like, from this perspective, the Baku are in the wrong.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah, right.
So
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Some actual ethical debates of being like, well, they're just the Sona are the bad guys because they're trying to take the energy. And they're like, well, the Sona are the Baku and they're just trying to survive because they got booted off because they wanted to play with their Nintendo Switches. And Angry Dad, who was there and was like, he was like, we're not, get back on the ship. He was a part of that decision. Wouldn't let them play with their Switches, and now it's like this whole thing. It's this whole family drama, a bit of drama, and it's, I wish they had played that up more, and we didn't get any of that.
Yeah, and the resolution could be, all right, you might still have Rawaffle be, go, off the deep end, but, the resolution be a much more cohesive coming together of the two sides as opposed to like, well, I guess I'm going to defect now because you called me a coward, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I think to start getting into some of the sum up, because we could probably go on this all day. I think you kind of mentioned, it's something that I bring up from time to time as like my core standard, I guess, for some things in movies and stories of like, there's always a bunch of stuff in stories that doesn't make sense because you need more than 2 hours to explain how literally everything in a world functions.
Yeah.
The
right,
first, 40 minutes, hour of this movie, there's a lot of weird stuff that doesn't make sense. It doesn't exactly hold up, but you don't notice.
Yeah.
Then it starts to hit that weird wall, and then all of a sudden all the stuff that doesn't make sense starts to catch you more.
Yes. Yeah, it almost like... Yeah, there is. There's just too much of it at that point where you're right to say, like, when you go into a movie, there's a suspension of disbelief. And right around the 40-minute marker is where that belief suspension just snaps and it just falls apart. And then, right, like every other weird thing that happens, you can't help but not notice it because you're no longer being able to pull yourself back to, that level of suspension of disbelief. You're stuck there seeing, like, none of this makes any sense. And now everything after that makes no sense continues to compound the problem. And like you said, like, it had a good run for quite a bit of it before that kind of happened, as opposed to like Nemesis, where it happens like immediately.
First scene.
Yeah, like right out of the gate. Yeah, it's immediately like, what am I watching? And it's so this one at least lets you have like some fun moments there before it all falls apart. But yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
And there's the tonal, like, I think also, like I was saying, since it's trying to do both things, the main reason it becomes so noticeable is, like you were saying, like, it starts with the scene where they're explaining everything, and then there's the neck-touching horniness. And there's just this weird tonal whiplash going through the whole thing. Because, like, yeah, the drones come down, and Worf starts smacking them with the back of a phaser. Like, definitely feeling aggressive because he's going through puberty. We're not taking this very seriously. That's fine. Like, I like watching these guys have fun and not taking things very seriously. It's part of what I'm here for. But why aren't we taking this seriously? This is like a serious... You're like doing forced relocation. There's a philosophical thing. Why aren't we taking this seriously again?
Well, here's an idea. Here's an idea. So what if they made that a plot point? That the Enterprise crew are so used to doing, being in these sort of situations where they aren't taking it seriously, but they really should be. That might be
one of the back crew is like, why are you guys having so much fun? This is life-threatening. Oh, this is a Tuesday for us.
What's wrong with you?
Why is he laughing? Yeah, yeah. Where we do this all the time. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. Like, actually, that whole idea that you just mentioned is kind of part of the plot of Lower Decks, which is kind of what they kind of make fun of in that show. But it does remind me a lot of Search for Spock, right? Where Kirk's like, we're just going to steal the Enterprise. And the rest of the original, like the TOS crew that's there with him, they're like, all right, yeah, probably just steal it. Probably pretty easy. You're just going to hotwire it to this little graphics card thing here, and we're just going to fly it out of here. Because they've done all these crazy things that stealing the ship out of space dock just doesn't compare to some of the stuff that they've done, and it right, it would have made more sense for that to kind of be like a bit of a plot point for them to be like, yeah, I mean, it's some isolinear tag drones, it's not a big deal, at least they're not shooting out, ray guns or something, and it's just kind of like played up a little bit for laughs, but right, the tonal shifts is kind of all over the place because they go from Worf having a funny line to Dougherty getting his face stretched to death, and they show it, and it's like, what am I feling? I don't even know. I don't know.
Also, it's like, it's horrifying but almost funny. It's like, wow.
Right. Yeah, it's cartoonish, but also like, wow, I can't imagine what that feels like, and that's kind of crazy. Yeah. He got his ass kicked by Raffo, and then he got his face stretched to death. Like, it's very weird.
I know. Like, I know they couldn't do this because they still need to make these movies with the assumption that someone seeing them hasn't necessarily memorized the entire run of the show up to this point. As they knew they were kind of winding down because, like, everybody was getting too old to fill the roles. Like, Brent Spiner was even saying he was getting too old to play Data, and it didn't make any sense anymore. Yeah. And like.
Right.
Yeah. I think there was something about he wanted Data to be killed off in this one.
And they could have done more like wink to the audience stuff because they were already doing the jokes in the thing. Like, it would have made more sense to do just a silly, like, self-referential, we're not taking this seriously because it's one of our last adventures things. Like, the drones show up and they start shooting us like, hey, remember that time we were stuck in the cave and the holograms kept trying to sell us drones? This is fun. We've done this before.
Right, exactly. Right. And kind of play that up a little bit more. as an element that's a bit funnier. And or even like you could have a sequence where earlier in the movie, like it's portraying a little bit of the age of the crew, and then once they get into the briar patch, then they're suddenly like, oh, we're feeling pretty good, and then they're kind of like, yeah, I remember what it feels like to kick some ass, like
let's go kick some ass now, yeah.
Right. It kind of plays that up, but yeah, I mean, or you could just do a sequence where Worf has acne, or you could just do that,
which was still like, I mean, oh my god, that was like that gets to the tonal thing of the movies because like. Worf has acne. It's objectively dumb. Why is that in there? But Data's face. It's like perfect.
Yes. It is, and that's the thing is, again, that is another... God, this movie's like filled with these things where it's like, this is dumb, but it's iconic. The Gorge. Like, it's funny and it's stupid and people remember it. And which is such a weird... Like, this movie is like, most people don't even remember the full plot of this movie.
They just remember the bits.
But they remember specific instances like the singing, the purple space bazooka. They remember the gorge. Like they remember like specific things that occurred. The face stretching. They're like, yeah, I remember that movie. But like, and they're like, yeah, but what were they doing with the collector? And there, people would be like, no, collecting what? What are you talking about? Yeah, like what are you talking about collecting?
I watched through this with someone who I know has seen it at least once before, and we finished. It's like, what? I don't remember any of this. Like literally none of this.
Right, exactly. Right. Well, when I sat down to watch it in preparation for this podcast, like I said to you guys earlier, like I remember, like I was sitting there, like this first act, man, this pretty damn good.
Solid,
like,
yeah,
like this is a solid first act, and it's like as soon as they find that damn ship, I'm like, here we go, where they're like they're just gonna be hanging out here, and Data's moving the dam, and he's tickling the fish, and it's it's like this is it, this is the part where this movie falls apart. But like that first part of it like was really great. Like even the HMS Pinafore thing, like I was looking forward to it because I had seen it lampooned and memed for so many years. I was like, yeah, here it is, like this is the scene, and he does the 2-button press and he brings up HMS Pinafore on the display, and it's like yeah,
he knows.
Which like that also just goes the whole aesthetic of TNG, which people have talked about, like how it's so built for comfort. Of course they have karaoke on their long-range shuttlecraft. They need something to do.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
karaoke item 1. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, it's specifically HMS Pinafore.
Which, like, I will say, like, as a kid, when I was younger and I was watching this in the theater, I guess I was, like, in middle school then. I can't remember how old I freaking was. How old am I anymore? Anyway, when I was younger and watching this in the theater...
How old is anybody, really?
I was, like, I was the nerdy kid who watched Gilbert and Sullivan DVDs. And then they do this. Yeah. Like, oh my god, all of my things are merging.
My worlds are colliding. Yeah.
Suddenly.
Yeah. Are they watching me? Is this what's happening here? They stalking
I also
me.
love just reading a random thing that Patrick Stewart said he doesn't like Gilbert and Sullivan and would have preferred Beavis and Butthead.
Yes, I noticed that too.
That doesn't surprise everything I know about Sir Patrick. That does not surprise me at all. He's both a sophisticated gentleman and also was the poop emoji. So he's both.
He kind of knows how to make to have some fun.
Yes, I would agree with that. I think, and and that's something that happens a lot. Especially during that first act where the crew is, we talked about earlier, like the cast of the main crew has such a great chemistry that, like, the rapid fire banter of the dialogue between Eugene Chaffor and putting out one more brush fire and the archaeological dig and the Worf showing up, like, the rapid fire discussions is just perfect, and it's funny and it's lighthearted. Right. It just works. And if they had kept that tempo and focused on them and exposing them to the plot of this movie of the Baku and stuff, I can't even imagine what kind of movie we would have.
Yeah,
had.
I think they
possibly
keep
one of the best.
Losing the thread in these movies because, like, of course, like even in original series, as much as I have a lot of critiques of original series after having just sat down and watched it one a week, like they like the crew together, like you don't even know anything that's happening outside of this ship. Like the rest of the world is basically a mystery. Like the entire thing is watching this crew interact and throwing situations at them. And then they keep bringing in other junk in these movies. It's like, well, the crew's interacting. Oh my God, it gave me such a nostalgia thing of like, oh my God, it's like seeing my friends and family again. And then, then all of a sudden they're not together anymore. This random woman is here. Like, why?
Suddenly we have to worry about this other stuff. This doesn't seem super important.
There's an annoying kid. Couldn't they have just brought Wesley back if they were going to have an annoying kid?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And it's funny, too.
Alexander.
Oh, just... my God. Alexander Roshenko.
He had to do something stupid on DS9 that didn't make any sense.
Yep. Let's not talk about it. Let's just not talk about it. I'll say this, too, because it's almost as if they kind of learned from this movie, because you're right to say, like, again, there's a specific point in time when he gets to the captain's yacht that everybody disperses. And that ruins the... Like, I'm here to watch them work together. Instead, I'm seeing different teams of people. Yes. So what's interesting is, in Nemesis, they all stay together, like, almost the entire movie. Like, other than when Picard gets captured or when Picard's in the dune buggy, it's not talking about it.
He was just having fun. It's still just fun.
He was just having a good old time. That's right. He just... Yeah, he likes flutes, tea, wine, and dune buggies. I don't know, like, what's the big deal? Yeah. So it's almost like as if they learned from the mistakes of this movie, but to keep everyone together. But then there's all these other problems that they were dealing with in that script. But it's like somebody may have, like, it's almost as if they learned from that. They were like, yeah, people want to see the crews interacting. And at the very least, you should break them into two groups, just for a short period of time.
But bring them back together.
Right. Or yes, right, correct. Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, it would have, again, like, there were so many things where, like, God, we could just continue to rewrite this movie all night, I feel like. We really could. I could keep going with different ideas of how to unscrew this movie, but I want to say something really quick, though, which is, we've been shitting on this movie for, like, the last, 2 hours, but I will say, like, something that I really absolutely just thoroughly enjoy is the Sona and the way that they were presented visually. I love the ships with all the little buttons and knobs. I love the couch captain's chair. I thought the makeup was really great. With all of the other races that were on board the ships, I like the ship designs. I really enjoyed that they created an identity for the Sona within a few simple sequences, and that's kind of hats off to the production assistants and the costume designers and the artists and stuff like that just created this whole new race. Like, within just a few sequences, we understood what they were and what was going on there. And I liked it. I liked that a lot. I really enjoyed the fact that they presented him in that fashion.
Yeah, to a certain degree, it kind of felt like, all right, so this is like a mirror version of the Federation. It's like, okay, what if, as opposed to, everyone was forced together and they were working for the humans, except these aren't humans. They're these aliens that are kind of human-like and have this weird thing going on. There we go. And then we also have all these other aesthetics kind of coming in, and it's all working together. And it's very much we're now in this sort of mirror universe, except it's not the mirror universe.
That's a very interesting idea. Like, they have, like, opposite levels of prime directives, but it's also a conglomerate of aliens that actually have primarily aliens in the fleet who are dispersing people who look like humans, whereas usually in Star Trek it's the opposite of that, where it's people who look like humans because it's cheaper that are dispersing folks that look like aliens. That's actually a really good point. That's interesting.
Another thing they could have done and explored.
Just so many opportunities and none of them taken.
Yeah,
but
for
I think
sure.
that we're kind of shitting on the movie because it's fun to do so, and there are a lot of potentials that it had, but it's still like, it's not a bad movie. It goes off the rails, and it's kind of dumb in places, and it has a lot of disappointingly unfulfilled potential, but it's still a fairly good movie.
Yeah, I still enjoy it, so...
Yeah, I like, the thing is with this movie in particular, and really, I would say every single Star Trek movie, and probably show, but every single Star Trek movie, like I love them, Like, I love them. Even if they're terrible films, like, if I see them on, like, if I turn the television on and they're on, I'm like, oh, what's this? Oh, it's Insurrection. I'll leave this on, I like this movie. It's like, I still love them. It's we are giving it a lot of a heartache, but at the same time, though, it's still a part of the Star Trek franchise. It's still a part of the larger Star Trek family of content, and and we're here to shit on it because we're fans and we love it, and we're still gonna, and like we say that we're shitting on this movie, but the three of us just watched it again just to sit down so we could talk about it. You know what I mean? So it's like, and we're like, yeah, this actually is still not that bad. It's got some
this
good
is probably like the
here.
6th time I've seen this one since it came out.
Yeah, I mean, I've probably seen this one, God, probably a dozen or so times.
I'd say it's
low.
It's lower on my rewatch list, but yeah, it's still higher than some Star Trek movies.
I'm gonna watch this before I watch like Into Darkness or Nemesis or you know what I mean, like. But even those ones have good redeemable qualities.
Yeah, they have some good points. Like I think I like this movie better than any of the Abrams movies overall. That might be a little bit of nostalgia and the tonal shift, but like I still think it's a good movie. I think this is a better movie than the reboot Star Trek movie.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, it's like they're all pretty. Like they're all like I'm gonna watch all of them if I see them on the television or whatever. And like this one isn't bad. Like it's got a lot of problems to it. It's super easy to shit on, as we just demonstrated over the last 2 hours. But it's still like, like I said, like when I was watching it, I wasn't like bored. I wasn't
still engaging.
Right. It's very engaging. I'm enjoying these characters. I love them. I'm enjoying what's happening. Like, even though there's none of this shit makes any sense, I'm like, I'm on along for the ride. I wasn't bored while I was watching it.
It's still fun. And I think it could have done something that was like more interesting and impactful than fun, which is why it's disappointing, but it's still fun.
Yes. You just said what I was trying to say for the last 15 minutes, so thank you for that.
So I'll go and give it a tentative thumbs up myself. It's like, yeah, there are some major story issues, but you can still enjoy it.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I think we can move on. We could do another 2 hours on this, and maybe if people like this enough, we'll do our spin-off podcast with Ketwolski. What were they thinking the Star Trek movies?
yeah. Let me rewrite that for you.com. Yeah.
Like we've talked about this for like 2 hours. Like I feel like we're repeating ourselves a little bit, which is fine. Happens.
Yeah.
But
that's okay.
I think we need to let everyone have a rest and move on to the galaxy's favorite game show.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Galaxy's Favorite Game Show, where we have our various contestants here in our special Star Trek movie extravaganza, and our guest judges are all ready to start handing out some prizes. So where should we begin? I think we should begin with the Hard Drive Brain Prize, which is which going to be awarded to Data for specifically getting his hard drive unmounted and scratched before the film even begins. Whoops! What does he win, Gepwin?
Data wins a trip to Space Costco to pick up a 6-pack of new brain hard drives, because this keeps happening to him and he needs some appropriate backup discs, and they're cheap, and they just like, you get a bundle. It's a giant data-sized cart for like $6 because it's Costco. It's fine. Pick up some free samples while you're there.
Well, I think there might be some trouble in transport, but this is a very good start, yes. Our second prize award dealio here is the Risky Moral Calculus award, which goes to Admiral Doherty for thinking for a second, working with these Sona guys might be, a good idea and not, a terrible, terrible life choice that, it's going to, ruin his life and, maybe the lives of many others. What does he win, Ketwolski?
Admiral Doherty is going to win probably 3 years, I would say, of community service, so that he recognizes bad people and maybe just some bad situations, so that he can maybe be a better judge of character. Maybe learn a little bit about folks before he just, lives on their ship and allows them to stretch his face out to death.
He can hang out in New Zealand with Paris. Yeah.
I think maybe Dougherty should have read up a little bit on, 20th century American international politics for all the you could have avoided there. Our next one is the One Perfect Moment of Beauty Prize, which goes to Anige, the lady person, for stopping the world to spend more time with Picard. What does she win, Gepwin?
I think she wins that one song. I'll stop the world and melt with you. Do, 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 do.
Oh, I love me some modern English. Oh, I accidentally did these out of order. Sorry about that. So our next one is the gunshots by computer for the Sona for using their drones for basically doing this, flying around and zapping people but not killing anyone because that'd be mean. What do they win, Ketwolski?
They win a free box of drones themselves, but they're like modern time drones and they have to use them within 5 feet, and they can only use them exclusively inside of a heavily forested area, and they can't fly them very far, and they just keep raking, and they're very sad about it.
I hope they remember to bring their smartphones, otherwise this isn't going to be too useful for them. Ho ho! Our next one is the Highlander Prize, which goes to the Baku in general for basically making good use of that local fountain of youth radiation to kind of live forever. What do they win, Ketwin?
The Baku win. There can only be 600.
And anyone else has to get, it has 3 options. You got the positronic shed option. You have your spaceship shed or the swords shed. So they got to make the decision quick now. Ho ho! Our next one is the Fooled You Prize, which goes to Picard and crew for using the holodeck ship thingamajig to pull a fast one on the Sona. What do they win, Ketwolski?
Picard and the crew are going to win life-size body doubles of the entire Sona crew, and they're going to just have to carry them with themselves while they're working on the Enterprise for all time, really, just to kind of remind them of the fast one that they pulled. It's kind of just like a little commemorative gift basket.
Nice. It's like trophies, but bigger.
Yeah, just giant trophies. They can't get rid of them, and if they lose them, they get another one.
That's why you see that Sona standee in the background of Nemesis just hovering there.
See, exactly. They're just hovering. They're falling out of the closets everywhere. They're like, that's Sona standees, get out of here. So Rafo's going to surprise you in the bathroom. He's just hanging out in the sonic shower. Ah!
Like, dude.
Yeah, personal
Can't
space,
I pee
Raffo.
in peace?
Yeah, seriously.
Who are you, Jordy? So, our next prize is the So Mad I Could Bleed prize, which goes to Ruafo for doing exactly this when he doesn't get his way when Picard has his people all locked up. It's Kepwin now, right?
Yeah, I think that Ruafo wins. I think it's just a retro effective award for like every time this has happened in a movie. People just bleed when you get mad. Like Fifth Element, this, it just goo comes out of your forehead when you're mad. So I guess get some anger management before your forehead goo.
And get some Kleenex for your face because it's gross.
It's going to get dripping everywhere. It's going to be nasty and gnarly, and it's getting all over the carpet. Come on, guys. Our final prize is the Wonderful Hostage Prize, which goes to the very Starfleet people who were on the planet at the start of the movie for kind of being, exactly this for both the Baku and the Sona later on in the film. What do they win, Ketwolski?
Every hostage is going to get a $25 gift card to Red Lobster, Space Red Lobster, Splopster, so they can also enjoy the Federation's snow crab bucket that they were clearly eating on the Baku home planet because apparently they love them so much.
What a delicious conclusion to today's show. I hope you all enjoyed, and take us away, guys.
Thank you all of our contestants and guests and Ketwolski for joining us here on the Galaxy's favorite game show.
Woo!
All right, one super final point, because the hostage thing reminded me, and there was nowhere to put this anywhere else. I always think it's really funny how they always forget the kind of scale when they have a planet that's a stand-in for like a piece of land. Because you could set up an entire like continent-sized health spa on the other side of this place, and they would never know.
Yep.
Because it's a planet.
Yeah, right. Right. And also, do they need all of the rings or some of the rings? Or how does any of this work? If I have cancer and I go there, oh wait, we already have the cure for cancer. So what are we using the radiation for? Oh, I don't know.
Cosmetic surgery.
Survive phasers? I don't know.
Cosmetic surgery.
Cosmetic surgery.
Yeah, it seems like we're doing all this just for the Sona. Why don't they just live on the other side of the planet?
Yeah, like, if aliens landed in Africa right now and set up a base and no one told you, you would not know.
Right. Especially if they had cloaking technology, which they clearly do.
Which also, it's still illegal. Federation, you never did that. Like, you're complaining at the Sona for having things outlawed by the Khitomer Accord. Let's talk about this cloaking device you have.
Because this was a Federation holo ship, by the way.
He made a point to mention that. It's Federation in design. That is such a good point. Oh, you got to keep that in. Yeah, what were they even like? They just forgot that the franchise even existed. They just wrote whatever they wanted. They were just doing whatever they wanted. Yeah, they don't care.
Just throw it all in the blender and see what happens.
Yeah, forget it. Forget about it. That makes me sad that I didn't even pick that up. But that is such a
You were just too distracted by the holo ship. You're like, what is this? Why is this happening? I'm glad I can't see it.
Wait, did he open the dam or did he flood the lake? Why is the dock still there? What's happening? Yeah,
that's a good point. Why do they have a dock that's at the level of the lower lake?
Just don't go down that road. Just don't do it. Don't do it to yourself.
We could spend another 2 hours doing this. So, yeah. So thank you for being our guest, Ketwolski. It's been a ton of fun. Where can people find your stuff so that anybody who watches us can go track you down?
Yeah, no, thank you guys for having me on. God, it was a really great conversation. I feel like we've talked for 5 minutes, even though it was several hours. It was really fun. I enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for having me here.
We're so glad that you've been having a good time.
Oh, yeah. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and
no problem.
If anybody wants to check out my content, you can check me out on YouTube. The channel name is obviously just going to be Ketwolski. You can also primarily get in touch with me or follow me on Twitter at Rio Ketwolski. And I do have a Facebook group as well that I kind of tertiarily kind of poke inside of every once in a while. So, yeah, I'm always available. I also do have an email. So if you want to talk or you have any questions about Star Trek or anything going on out there, just hit me up. I'm always available. And if I can get to you, I will.
And links for all of that, if you're watching this on on YouTube, because we don't do visuals, there will be links for all that in the episode description or on the various podcasty link things if you're on one of our other feeds. All right, as for the two of us, that was our mid-season break. We are moving on from original series, not to Next Generation, to my great disappointment. We still have 20-some-odd episodes left to go, because we are going to be covering the first episode of Star Trek, the animated series.
Woo!
So, Ketwolski, what are we in for?
You are in for a wild adventure beyond any of your possible imaginations could come up with. It is both strange, humorous, cringy, and boring. It's all of the above, but it is an absolute must-watch. It's very much like the Star Wars Holiday Special, where I feel like it's a bit of a rite of passage. You must watch it. It must happen. And I look forward to hearing your guys' reactions, especially when you see Big Spock.
Big Spock. Well, I actually got these on DVD, so this will be fun. Apparently the first episode for next time is Beyond the Farthest Star, where they're exploring the outer rim of the galaxy again. They meet a derelict something-year-old spaceship.
I guess we have that to look forward to.
Yeah, this will be interesting. One part of the Star Trek canon I have yet to ever see a single episode of because it was so hard to find until recently. But I hope that you will join us next time. Thank you again, Ketwolski, for joining us here. I'm so glad you had a great time. It's been great to have you on.
Yeah, thank you guys again.
Do this again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this was great. We'll have to pick another controversial topic to break down as well. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you guys.
And everyone else can join us next time here on Watchers of Tomorrow.
Next time on Watchers of Tomorrow, damn the illusion of movement, damn to the illusion of movement to hell. You have been listening to Watchers of Tomorrow, a podcast on science fiction media. Find and follow Watchers of Tomorrow on Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Spreader, Digital Podcast, and perhaps many more to come. If you enjoy our podcast, make sure to subscribe for more. And where possible, make sure to rate your experience or leave us a review. You may find Gepwin on youtube.com/Gepwin and Twitter @Gepwin. You may find me, Dr. Isix, on youtube.com/Dr. Isix and Twitter @IsixLP. Music is Waveform and Mori's Principle, both by DRKRN. You can also check out the Watchers of Tomorrow Discord channel. Make sure to share the experience with your friends, family, enemies, and alien overlords. If you feel you are suffering from transporter syndrome, please be aware that the next time you step off the transporter, that you, that is now, no longer exists.